It is the Sports Bash live on a happy hour Friday. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there. So the Eagles have made moves, baby. Yesterday they announced that Sean Mannion, he will be the new offensive coordinator for the Birds. A offensive coordinator, 2 years coaching, no play calling experience, 2 years removed from being a player in the league. He's the new play caller. Today, they bring in Josh Grizzard, who had interviewed for the offensive coordinator job. He does have play calling experience. He will be Mannion's new pass game coordinator. So how about that? They got an offensive coordinator who's never called plays and a pass game coordinator who has called plays. What does this say? A lot. We're going to get into it right now on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, as we get ready for a happy hour Friday. As always, on the Friday show, let us know what you're having. Give us some great options for the weekend. We've got the first weekend with no football. Period. Point blank, nothing. They don't even give us the Pro Bowl anymore on this weekend. We got no football this weekend, so it's a happy hour Friday. It's supposed to be cold as heck out there, so we got to warm up with a little happy hour Friday. All right, so here's what we got. The Mannion stuff comes in late yesterday, right around 5:30. We're on the air. That comes over, and it's breaking news, and that's what we hear. Initial reaction. Can't be anything other than either A, it's not the guy you wanted because you didn't know who he was. B, you're like Sirianni. You're willing to just give him a chance. I said, I like the move. For no other reason than it seems that they got a guy who was the best candidate, even though he didn't have the experience. The Eagles aren't saying, let's just hire a guy who's got more experience. They didn't go down, let's please the fans. They did what their conviction told them. Let's get the best guy. I don't care that he hasn't called plays. Nick Sirianni had never been a head coach before. He had never been a play caller before. They hired him. They won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid had never been a play caller before. They hired him. He'd never been a coordinator before. They hired him, and he has turned out to be one of the greatest head coaches in the history of the NFL. Same with Doug Peterson. If the Eagles find a guy and they do their due diligence, they get the guy. And I think Sean Mannion, I don't know anything about the guy other than from what I hear and read and all the stuff that's being discussed about. But what is being discussed is that this is a guy who will be, could fail. There's a lot of these coordinators that could be the next hot candidate, or he's going to be the fast track. That was Josh McCown a couple of years ago. Remember? Everybody, Josh McCown, he's going to be the fast track to being a head coach. Well, he has kind of fizzled out. He's now a quarterback coach. But a lot of people think Sean Mannion is the guy that could end up being, on the head coaching circuit very soon. He's 33 years old. He's a backup quarterback in this league. He's bounced all around, and now he's your play caller. But what I really like is the fact that they end up pairing him with Grizzard. Now, Josh Grizzard is his name, for those of you who have no idea who this Josh Grizzard is. He was the Buccaneers coordinator this year. Last year, he was their pass game coordinator. In 2024, Liam Cohen, the Jacksonville head coach, was the offensive coordinator. Grizzard was the pass game coordinator. So what is Grizzard's background? Mike McDaniel. He's off the Mike McDaniel tree a little bit. That's where he started his career. He started his career in Miami with the Dolphins with Mike McDaniel. So he does have a lot of the Mike McDaniel, which is kind of off the, Shanahan tree there. So he is coached with Miami with Mike McDaniel, Liam Cohen, who is now in Jacksonville. So one of the things that Grizzard gets a lot of credit for during his time in Tampa, and I talked to somebody who covers the Buccaneers and has for a long time, about Josh Grizzard. I said, give me the lowdown on Grizzard. This is what they told me. First year as a play caller with the Buccaneers last year. Really good the first half of the year, but bogged down some. Some of that was him. Some was a bad offensive line. Some of it was Baker Mayfield pressing and throwing interceptions. He previously worked with Mike McDaniel in Miami, but he was the passing game guy third down on Liam Cohen's staff in 2024. Why is that significant? In 2024, on third down, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were one of the best teams in football. They converted 50% on third down. And according to a lot of people, Josh Grizzard was the one who designed the third down play calls. Isn't that bizarre? Hey, you designed the third down plays. You designed the second down plays. You go do the first down plays. Well, he's the pass game coordinator, and you come up with a bunch of plays that on third down in the passing game that we can go to. And that is what he has done. So he will be the pass game coordinator. Mannion will call the plays. That is the setup. And this is why I think it's significant, and this is why I think it works. One, I think the indication here is that Nick Sirianni understands it had to change. So I'm not just going to change a little bit. I'm going to go in with 2 feet, and I'm going to change the whole damn thing. Right? You and your wife are discussing, how do we change the kitchen? And one of you says, let's just change the cabinets, paint them. And I don't know that painting the cabinets is really going to do enough. Let's just rip the whole damn thing down and start over. Right? Wait a second. We can't move the sink. We can't move the refrigerator. There's electrical stuff and there's pipes and who cares? We're just going to rip it all out and start from scratch. That's essentially what Sirianni's saying here. He's like, I still want to live in this kitchen. I still want to use this kitchen in this space. I just want this space to look a heck of a lot different. And it does. You've got 2 coaches now. Sean Mannion should be the exciting one of the 2. Why? He's 33 years old. He basically has no experience. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, and you would say, well, neither did Kevin Patullo. Guess what? This is different. Kevin Patullo has been in the league bouncing around for years. He was with the Eagles when Sirianni came here. Nobody's been knocking on the door for Kevin Patullo. He is what he is. He's hey, you have a role on a staff. You're a good football guy. You're a good soldier. You're going to sleep under the desk. You're going to stay here late. You're going to get here early. But you're probably not a premier guy in this league. And that's okay. You need the grunts, right? You need somebody who's going to put the time in. Sean Mannion, he went right from the grunt work right up to the top because they saw something in him immediately. Mannion's the guy you take the swing on, not Patullo. Right? Kevin Patullo's the long-time offensive assistant. Sean Mannion turns into the NFL head coach. And then one year, people forget often, there was a guy by the name of John Gruden. John Gruden, when you talk about Gruden, you generally remember him as the Super Bowl winning coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, correct? Is that what he's most noted for? But what people forget about John Gruden is he was once the lowly coordinator here in Philadelphia. That's where he got his start, right? That's where he first gets – now, he had other jobs before that as a wide receivers coach, and I think he was in Green Bay and a couple other places before that. But his first chance to be the coordinator is here in Philadelphia. He gets the job in Philadelphia as a play caller. But when people look back at John Gruden, they don't look at those couple seasons in Philadelphia that he was the offensive coordinator. They look at him as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then he ends up going to, well, he was in Oakland, then he went to Tampa, then he went back to Oakland/Vegas. But most people remember Gruden as a head coach who won the Super Bowl. But it all started as a offensive quality control coach in Green Bay, which is, by the way, where Sean Mannion is, and basically he is the quarterback's coach there. A low-level coach, but you quickly saw that he was going to move up the ranks. Kevin Patullo, on the other hand, I mean, for God's sakes, nothing against Kevin Patullo here, but he doesn't exactly have, the the resume anymore that's going to say, well, that guy was once the wide receivers coach in Indianapolis, and you knew right away he was going to work his way up the ladder. No. Wide receivers coach, pass game specialist, pass game coordinator, offensive assistant wide receivers coach, Buffalo, Kansas City, offensive assistant, quality control. I mean, you can see the writings on the wall that he's not really making the big jump there. The Eagles swung and missed on Patullo, and that needs to be called out. This time, I heard a lot of people saying they hired a guy with no play calling experience, 2 years coaching. What are they doing? I think they are taking the big swing. Now, listen, we might be back here having this conversation. We might be back here next year having the conversation of, this guy didn't work out. You hired a first-year play caller. What were you thinking? And I've been on the record of saying I don't think they should have hired a first-year play caller with the Super Bowl winning team. Now, that team's done. They didn't win the Super Bowl. Now you need the best candidate. Well, you didn't need the best candidate before? Not necessarily you need the best candidate, but you should have got a guy who had a little bit of experience in case the Super Bowl winning team got knocked off the track a little bit. That's where the experience would have come in. Now, you didn't win the Super Bowl last year. Now we have to start over. Now we have to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what's the problem here? And the problem, as I see it, in 2023, people said, what happened? They were 10-1. What happened? I think the Eagles took a look in the mirror and they told you what happened. They didn't have good enough coaches. Out with Sean Desai, in with Vic Fangio. Out with Brian Johnson, in with Kellen Moore. And you're looking at this year and you're saying, why did this team struggle? What do I have to look at myself in the mirror and say I need to fix? Because I think in 2023 they looked at themselves in the mirror and said, we need a better staff. Now, you could also question, why did you let Kevin Patullo be the guy? And I have some reasons on that, and they're not great reasons, but I can understand them. But when you do the soul searching, and you sit down with Jeffrey Lurie, and you sit down with Howie Roseman, and you're Nick Sirianni, and they go through what happened, why. Did Nick Sirianni look at himself in the mirror and say, guys, I think it's time to make a change in my offensive philosophy. I think 5 years, we won a Super Bowl, we got to a Super Bowl, we've been very successful. I think the league is starting to figure my offense out a little bit, and I think it's time that we bring in some new ideas. Enter Sean Mannion. Enter Josh Grizzard. And if that's the case, I give Nick credit for saying, listen, my offense has lived out its worthiness. I'm open to new ideas. We heard what they said in the press conference. Nick's always willing to work with people, new ideas, all that stuff. Is that what happened here? Your reaction, Josh Grizzard is the new pass game coordinator. You know what's funny? We go back years. You couldn't name the offensive coordinator. You couldn't name the pass game coordinator. You couldn't name the offensive line coach. You couldn't name any of these guys. Now it's like, who's the wide receiver coach? Who's the offensive quality control guy? Who's the pass game coordinator? Like, all these guys matter. All these guys matter. You're as good as the staff. When Andy Reid's staff started to get plucked from him, that's when the problems started. You got to have somebody teaching. You got to have somebody coaching in the NFL. 609-403-0973. Nick Foles played with Sean Mannion, Josh. Give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, so late last night, Nick Foles dropped an emergency pod.
Emergency pod!
Because of the news. And part of the conversation started with the fact that Nick Foles personally knows the Eagles' new offensive coordinator when they played together in St. Louis Rams time.
Very impressive rookie, one of the more impressive rookies I've ever been around. You could tell right away with his work ethic, his knowledge of football at that point. And honestly, I don't know if you liked it when I said it, but it seemed like he had a photographic memory with his ability just to recall things. Either that or he just constantly was, studying, prepping, flashcards, whatever it may be. But you could tell he was really diligent.
Listen, anytime the backup quarterback with a bad hairline gets a job, I'm on board. You don't think the hairline has anything to do with the success or failure?
But I do like what Foles said there, which is, I think, more important. The fact that he said, look, this guy came in, he had attention to detail, he was diligent, he was smart, he had great recall. Like, sometimes people forget that the habits that you show early on as a professional are probably the reasons why you're going to be successful long term.
Yeah, and listen, there's certain guys who understand I'm not going to be an MVP level player. I might not even be a starting level player. So if that's the case, I want to stay in this game. I'm going to have to do something else, and I'm going to go down this road. This is why, you see many of the players who were not great players generally become the better coaches. When all these people say, well, why not make Chase Utley the manager? Those guys are generally not more suited to manage. They're great players. Great players have a hard time
communicating,
coaching lesser players on how to be great because they're so great they can't understand how the lesser player can't do what they can do.
Well, you remember years ago when Michael Jordan owned was then the Charlotte Bobcats, they drafted this young man named Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Michael Jordan thought the way to teach Michael Kidd-Gilchrist how to be a great player is to play him one-on-one and beat him.
Well, listen.
Didn't work.
Mannion, a backup quarterback who has been around a lot of great offenses. He played for Sean McVay. He played for Kevin O'Connell, and he has coached with Matt LaFleur. Those are three of the best offensive minds going in the NFL right now. And you pair him up now with Josh Grizzard, who has been around Mike McDaniel. So now you add McDaniel, you've got Shanahan stuff there, you've got McVay stuff. Nick Sirianni just basically said, rip out the whole damn kitchen, let's put in a brand new one.
And that's part of what Ross Tucker said on the Ross Tucker podcast about it's the background of Sean Mannion that matters most.
Love the background for new Eagles offensive coordinator Sean Mannion, playing for Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, coaching with Matt LaFleur. That's what you're looking for. Love the fact that he just retired from playing a couple years ago. He has seen a lot of the same defenses that Jalen Hurts has seen and can relate to him in that way.
So the fact that the big thing that stands out to me is all the people that he's worked with and now can implement. One of the things Josh Grizzard, who, by the way, is not the offensive coordinator, but I think the Grizzard part of this really sells me on it. The Mannion thing, I'm like, okay, I'll be willing to take a chance. You bring Grizzard in, that's where I now say you pair those guys together, and now I think you got something big.
I said to you before the show, Mike, that to me the Grizzard hire reminds me of what the Eagles did years ago when what Frank Reich was to Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson had never called plays before. He got to Philadelphia. He became the head coach. Frank Reich was the guy in Doug Peterson's ear, kind of counseling him and guiding him at times, and I think Grizzard can be that for Mannion.
Yes, and the one thing is that from what I understand about Grizzard, a lot of motion, a lot of movement in his offense,
yes.
Stuff that obviously was not done here a lot. You had in 2024 when he was the pass game coordinator, and that's really his role here. As the offensive coordinator, didn't seem to do that good of a job. Now there were reasons from according to some people that I talked to in Tampa. But here as the pass game coordinator, they were sixth in the yards per attempt, top 3 in passing yards. Baker Mayfield threw for 4,200 yards and 41 touchdowns in 2024. So expect to see more aggressive downfield stuff from Jalen Hurts, stuff a little bit more in his uncomfortable zone. You take a look at him being a guy who creates good stuff on third down. So maybe he's just more comfortable in, hey, I'm a good play designer, maybe not the best play caller. That's what you see here. So I'll help design these plays. Mannion, now, the jury's out on Mannion. He's never called plays before in his life. Well, actually, I take that back. He was the offensive coordinator for the Senior Bowl.
He was, yes. But I think the bigger issue, as Nick Foles pointed to, is he thinks that Mannion was hired for two reasons. Because he can work with Hurts and because what Sean brings to the table that maybe others can't.
Who ultimately do they feel like Jalen Hurts would want to work with? And I think Sean Mannion, being 33 years old, having played professional quarterback in the NFL, having backed up, obviously Jalen's a starter, but he has this unique knowledge. The bet obviously is he's never called plays. And in Philadelphia, that can be difficult. But I will say this to put everyone's mind at ease that's a Philadelphia fan that's sort of like, what the heck? Sean is one of the more bright football minds I have been around in my career. He will be, I'm guessing right now, I would say he'd be a head coach in the NFL in the next several years. I expect him to do really well.
That's the funny part is as soon as this happened, they're saying, welcome to the head coaching ranks in 2027.
Right.
So you got that. I like the Mannion hire now with the combination of having the pass game coordinator who has the experience, and you marry those two guys together. And what this tells me is that Sirianni's willing to kind of get out of the way. I got a guy who's a coordinator. He can kind of manage the coordinator. Those two guys can hang out together and have a good time, and I don't have to worry about it as much. So, reaction from the people out there, 609-403-0973. Josh Grizzard is the new pass game coordinator hired today, and Sean Mannion is the new offensive coordinator hired yesterday. You know what's interesting about this for the people who are just kind of coming in? Grizzard had interviewed for the offensive coordinator job twice.
Correct.
So he did get a call back. Now, there was a bunch of guys that got two, Johnson and a couple others. But they interviewed him twice for the play caller job. He ends up not getting it. But I'm imagining one of the reasons you start talking to this guy is like, hey, man, we really like you. Would you be willing to come here in another role and work with somebody else if you don't get that job? And if he says, yeah, I'm willing to do it. I just want to be a part of this organization because I like what we have going on here. I think that tells you that you got a guy who liked what he saw with the Philadelphia Eagles offense.
And we've heard from a lot of people that the Eagles were interviewing all these people, not just because they're interviewing candidates, but they're information gathering. They were getting more information on these people. That's what the Eagles do. The Eagles are an organization that's not just about, I am interviewing this person, I am a robot. No, they are gathering information.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video. You can watch the show live on YouTube, the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Be a part of the show that way. A lot of people watching today. If you're watching, hit a comment. We'll put it up on the screen, and we'll react to that. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. We got tickets to the Metro Classic today. Every hour, we're going to be giving away another pair of tickets for the games tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow's a big day over there. They got games today, by the way. Games last night. I heard some great games last night. So check it out. We'll give away more tickets today on the show. Coming up, football at 4, Adam Caplan. Marc Zumoff is going to take us down memory lane with the 2001 Sixers. We're having a little shindig. The 25th anniversary reunion game is tomorrow night. Sixers players and executives from that 2001 team, they will be there tomorrow night when they play the Pelicans. And Marc Zumoff was the voice, the soundtrack of that summer. He's going to join us at 4:30 today on the Sports Bash. 231 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles finally get not their man, they got two guys they were interviewing for the offensive coordinator job. One gets the coordinator job. The other one is the pass game coordinator. Did the Eagles luck out by waiting this one out? Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is here. We'll get his thoughts on the way the Eagles handled this. We were talking about this yesterday. The Giants still need a coordinator. I want to see what Mike thinks about the way I'm starting to see this Giant thing here. Yesterday we had Sal on. We talked about the Mets and Phillies, the Sixers and the Knicks. We'll do a little bit of that and more right now. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, joins us here. You know, Mike, a couple days ago, the Eagles were interviewing guys. Next thing you know, they hired two guys almost back-to-back here. One guy to call the plays. He has no play-calling experience. The other guy, he's going to be the pass game coordinator. He does have play-calling experience. Did the Eagles kind of luck out with the way this thing shook out?
Well, I don't know if they lucked out, or, only time will tell. I'll tell you what, though, I will give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt because under owner Jeffrey Lurie, they have done an excellent job of identifying coaches who have limited experience who have gone on to have success, i.e. Andy Reid, i.e. Nick Sirianni, even Doug Peterson to a degree. So I know people right now are kind of up in arms or maybe pushing the panic button because Mannion has not called plays. But to me, what you are looking for in an offensive coordinator is obviously either an established guy with some head coaching experience, or you're looking to grab that next rising star. And time will tell, but I'm not going to condemn the Eagles today because their history, again, of picking coaches with limited track records and having them be successful has been pretty good in the Jeffrey Lurie era.
Yeah, I agree with that. They seemingly, when they do their due diligence, they kind of find guys. And Mannion, 2 years as a coach, was a player in 2023, no play calling experience. You would say, wait a second, you just kind of ripped the Eagles for hiring Patullo, who had no play calling experience. I look at this a little bit differently, is that Patullo seemed like, the long-term, grinded-out coach who just kind of toils around as a position coach. Mannion seems to be the guy around the league that everyone was saying, you might want to get him a year too early before you miss out on him altogether.
Exactly, Mike. You hit it there 100%. Patullo is the lifetime assistant that's always been there. Kind of like the girl next door, right? And boy, if you marry the girl next door, you can have a happy life. So it just didn't work out for the Eagles. But Mannion is a guy, like you said, he was a quarterback in the league in 2023, at Green Bay where he was the quarterback coach, seen as a rising star. If you can get a guy like that on the way up, it's a great hire. Again, time will tell. But obviously, Mannion's is a fast-moving guy, and the Eagles are maybe catching a rising star here early in the trajectory.
Right, and then they bring in Josh Grizzard, who was a play caller last year in Tampa. He was a pass game coordinator the year before that. So you have a lot more experience on this staff. And the one thing that I like, Mike, is you got guys who have been around other good offensive minds. You got a guy who's been around Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel. It sounds to me that Nick Sirianni is willing to say, look, I looked at myself in the mirror. I had a great run with my playbook. Maybe the league has caught on to it. It's time to start over.
Yeah, maybe it's time to, find what the latest trends are. Jump on the latest trends before they become trends. And who better to do that than a guy who was a quarterback in the league a couple of years ago, Mike? I'm reminded that they always say, these guys, the quarterbacks that come out, the quarterbacking coaches that come out, retire, whatever, and become TV commentators or color analysis, they always say that X's and O's, they're really good the first year or two, three in their tenure as announcers because they're still familiar with how the league is being played. So Mannion is up to date, doesn't have to play catch up. And like you just pointed out, there's plenty of people around the building, whether it's the new passing game coordinator, whether it's the former running game coordinator and Jeff Stoutland, whether it's Nick Sirianni himself, whether it's Vic Fangio, a guy who's game planned against defense, against some of the league's top offenses, that Mannion can go to for advice and have his play calling skills sharpened.
All right, Mike, yesterday we were talking about the Giants in the NFC East. They hire Harbaugh. They need an offensive coordinator. It kind of came to my head that a couple of years ago, Washington Commanders hire Ron Rivera. And they were lauded for that as they finally got a guy who gives them some credibility and some stability. He had been to a Super Bowl, and that really didn't work out. The direction of the Giants and the way things are going, does Harbaugh immediately kind of change that franchise and put them into playoff contention, Super Bowl contention sooner than later? Or do you see the Harbaugh thing going down the road of Washington with Rivera, where it sounded like a great idea, it felt like the perfect move, and then it just kind of bottomed out?
Nah, I disagree completely with you there. First of all, I know Ron Rivera had success with the Carolina Panthers, but John Harbaugh is a much more accomplished football coach than Ron Rivera. And what the Giants need more than anything, Mike, I don't really care who the Giants offensive coordinator is. What the New York Giants needed was an adult to coach the football team. They needed somebody to go in there and hold their young, talented players accountable. Show them how to win. And I'm well aware that, the track record for coaches who have won Super Bowls in their second spots is not good. But the Giants have struggled for a decade. They won winning 2, 3, 4 games. I think Harbaugh going in there with the talent the Giants have makes them a playoff contender. But right now, I'll take Harbaugh being an adult, modernizing the Giants organization. Again, you talk about Sirianni going outside the organization to bring in people who were familiar with the way other franchises did things. Well, you see that with the Giants. You see guys that have been there a long time being either reassigned or let go. I understand that's painful, but it's probably a necessity to sort of modernize the organization. So what the Giants needed more than anybody was a guy who could coach in the NFL, who's won big time, who can come in and set standards and be an adult in the room. Now, is that going to be enough to get them to the playoffs? I think it will be. Maybe this year coming up, maybe the next year. Is that going to be enough to get them to the Super Bowl? Who knows? But if Harbaugh can take the Giants where they are now, which is a shipwreck, which is the Titanic laying at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and somehow get that ship floating again, maybe the next coach will drive us to the promised land.
All right. Keep an eye on that. They need a coordinator. You said, I don't care who it is. Well, remember, Harbaugh does not call plays. He's not an offensive guy. He's had Monken with them. He's had other coordinators with them. They need to have somebody to run that offense.
Honestly, the guy I would like, Mike, is I would go for Charlie Weiss Jr. He's had a relationship with Jackson Dart in the past. He's a guy that I would throw out there for the Giants.
All right. Saw you tweeting up a storm the other night regarding the rumor of the day yesterday, which was, what about Giannis Antetokounmpo saying, you know what? That Maxey kid looks like he's a lot of fun. And then it's like, well, okay, but you're going to have to give up VJ Edgecombe. Seems like I don't want to say a split. It feels like the Sixer fans are saying, nah. You're not taking our prize, kid. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, just playing like hot stove here because I don't think the 76ers have enough to get Giannis. But if what is holding up the Giannis deal is Philadelphia's unwillingness to deal VJ Edgecombe, to me that's malpractice and silly. I would trade a rookie every day of the week and twice on Sunday for one of the 5 best players in the NBA. And to me, if you're not willing to trade Edgecombe for Giannis right now, then trade Joel Embiid because you're not serious about winning in the next couple of years. I think what Philadelphia tends to do, and Philadelphia media, which I'm a part of, and Philadelphia fans, we tend to look at the players on our own teams and value them more than they actually are. I mean, to me, Edgecombe like I tweeted, Mike, there are 25 guys right now in the Eastern Conference better than him. There'll be 25 guys in the Eastern Conference better than him next season. And to say I'm not going to trade that guy for Giannis to get, or include him in a package to get Giannis, is just downright silly.
Well, I would say this. On the surface, you got Giannis. The problem with Giannis is this calf thing is not going away. I mean, it has kept him out of the playoffs. It has now popped up multiple times this year. I mean, is that a concern that you would say, hey, I'm bringing on a guy who might be damaged goods?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Get my point here is I don't think the 76ers, A, have enough in draft picks and players to get Giannis. And two, you make a great point with the calf, because what has followed the calf injuries the past couple of years, it seems like the Achilles is the next thing to go. So I think any team sort of giving up the store to bring Giannis in has to do their due diligence, and that calf is something to worry about. All I'm saying is if Daryl Morey is sitting down there with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Milwaukee Bucks say, well, Edgecombe's got to be in this deal for Giannis or there's no deal, you include Edgecombe in the deal if you want Giannis.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen either. I don't think the Sixers would trade him, but obviously something interesting to keep an eye on, because Joel Embiid last night, Maxey with 40, Embiid with 37. Not the best game. They had to come back just to beat the Sacramento Kings. But after the game, Joel Embiid said, hey, listen, we need to improve this team. We deserve it. We got good guys in here. Let's not worry about the tax here. Do the Sixers profile as a team that should be making a push at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I can honestly see it. Again, the mystery out there, the unknown variable is Joel Embiid's health. But honestly, how many years do you have left with Embiid to contend? Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three, who knows? If you think that this team can do it, and we talked the other day that the East is wide open and the Sixers on any given night can beat one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and the main question is Embiid health. If you think you can do it, yeah, I would go all in and try to win a title. You've got an old team here. I know you've got young players, but the minute Embiid leaves and Paul George probably follows him out the door, I know Maxey's a great player. I know Maxey is outstanding. But Maxey alone in the postseason, I don't know about that. So if you think that Embiid can survive, yeah, I'm the Sixers. I go for it, because what else are you doing with Embiid? If you don't go for it, then trade Embiid, because you have Embiid to win a title. Well,
we'll see how it all plays out. The trade deadline Thursday next week. Mike, the Metro over at Stockton, we're going to be giving tickets away throughout today. We had a ton of people trying to win them yesterday. That got underway last night, full schedule today, and a full schedule tomorrow. Did you see any NBA talent?
Yeah, I saw Julius Event from Bergen Catholic, a guy who is committed to Michigan State. Kevin Boyle brought in his team from Ohio, filled with Division I players. And on Saturday, the big game, Blair and their 6'3" point guard, Darren Rippey, who is committed to Duke. He's supposed to be the real deal, too. Plus, on Saturday, you've got some local games out there. Middle Township meets Shore Conference Power, CBA at 3:45, followed by Atlantic City and Roselle Catholic at 5 o'clock. Couple things about last night. I stopped by there. We have a feature story up on PressOfAC.com. First of all, I'll say what a great venue Stockton is. That gym is really kind of underutilized, in my opinion. The Cape Atlantic League title games used to be held there, a couple of years ago. I think both the league and Stockton have to figure out a way to get those Cape Atlantic League boys and girls title games back at Stockton. And two, real high-quality basketball. I know the tickets are a little pricey, but you spend $30, $35, you do get to see 6, 7, 8 games if you want, and you are sitting very close, and you are seeing some entertaining hoops. So it's an event worth supporting, especially with the local teams in Middle Township and Atlantic City playing tomorrow.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you get like 8 games in a day, and they're really jamming a bunch of games in there, and high quality, high profile games. Check them out over at Stockton the rest of today and all day tomorrow. And for more, check out Mike McGarry's coverage at PressOfAC.com. All right, Michael, I might see you over there.
All right, we'll see you later, Mike. See you down the road.
All right, there's Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. It's easy to do. Go to YouTube. Just search 973 ESPN in the search bar, and you'll see the show right there live. And coming up, we got tickets to give away for that great event over at Stockton University. Check that out one of the days this weekend. The Metro Classic. It is today and tomorrow. Yesterday was the first day. If you want tickets, MetroClassicBasketball.com has the schedule and all the alumni who have played there. As Mike just mentioned, some of the big names are going to be playing all throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. We'll give away some tickets for tomorrow's event coming up in just a little bit here. McMullen will go deep on the Eagles, how they came to Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard. How do those two guys now Philadelphia Eagles? The Nuggets plus Marc Zumoff will take a trip down memory lane to the 2001 76ers at 4:30. You don't want to miss that. Sal Paolantonio, Evan Cohen. We're loaded on a Friday. All right, 525, 252. Jeez. It's Friday, dude.
You all right over there?
I've had a week. 609-403-0973. That's the text number. Text the word Metro right now. First 5 people to do it, you're going to win a pair of tickets to the Metro Classic tomorrow at Stockton University. It's good for the whole day. It's good for every game tomorrow. Pair of tickets. Text the word Metro to 609-403-0973. First 5 people to do it, you'll win a pair of tickets to the action tomorrow at Stockton University. It's the final day tomorrow for the Metro Classic. Atlantic City's going to play. Middle Township's going to play, along with some of the top teams and players in the country. Anybody else who wants to go to MetroClassicBasketball.com for tickets and information. 609-403-0973. Text the word Metro. First 5 people to do so. You are going to see the games tomorrow. Your name will be at will call, so we'll contact you, get your information. First 5 people to do so right now, 609-403-0973. All right, coming up, we got a whole bunch to do today. John McMullen, of course, we'll talk birds with him as they hire Sean Mannion to be their new offensive coordinator. Josh Grizzard, he will be the new pass game coordinator. How do they marry those two? How did they get that done? And how does it profile on the field? What will they look like now offensively? Is it pointing to a new offensive philosophy? We'll talk to John McMullen about that coming up in about 6 minutes from now on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN+. Plus, the Nuggets next hour. Adam Caplan, football at 4 today. Marc Zumoff, the voice of the Philadelphia 76ers during the Iverson era and longer, by the way. Miss hearing Zoom. Reached out to him today. I said, hey, they're having this thing this weekend. We got to hear stories from Marc Zumoff about the 2001 Sixers, who they're honoring this weekend at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. So we'll hear from Marc Zumoff at 4:30. Then it's Sal Paolantonio with his thoughts on what the Eagles have done. And, by the way, Sal Pal was a part of the 30 for 30 on the Philly special play. You'll hear how he was involved on that 30 for 30, which is coming out next weekend. Sal Paolantonio tonight at 5 o'clock. And then Evan Cohen from Unsportsmanlike. He'll be our Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. We'll do it live. We'll do it live at 5:30 with Evan Cohen, our Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. All right, jam-packed Friday edition of the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, you can watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Just go to 97.3 ESPN's YouTube channel and watch the show live. McMullen coming up. All right, 3 o'clock. Sports Bash this hour is brought to you by Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Cooling. Your source for heating and plumbing service installation. Call 609-390-3907. Online, broadleys.net. We're live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. On the radio, 97.3 ESPN, and the free mobile app. A lot of ways you can get us. Free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. No games tonight. No Flyers, no Sixers. Sixers won last night. Ugly game. They found a way to win it. Flyers lose again. Phillies less than 2 weeks from pitchers and catchers. But it's the Eagles always making the big news, right? They finally have ended the search. And then, they hire their offensive coordinator. Then the very next day, they add a pass game coordinator who very well could have been the coordinator. We'll get the details on how they married this together and what the messaging is. John McMullen, Birds 365, Sports Illustrated, joins me now right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And Johnny Mac, the search is over. The due diligence has been done. They end up with Sean Mannion, a guy entering his third year as a professional coach. He is just 3 years removed from the field. No play calling experience. Is this profile as the kind of guy you thought they would land when they fired Kevin Patullo?
Certainly not at the beginning of the search. I think, it was pretty evident that Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll were at the top of the list, and obviously both of them have significant play calling experience. And that was the narrative, right? That was the criticism of Kevin Patullo as he learned on the job as a first-time play caller. And then when he can't get those guys locked down, I think it shifted, and I think it became more of a true search, a true fact-finding mission. And I thought the two most interesting things to me were the branding of it, which is pretty clear that the Eagles want to make this a very clear to a general public that doesn't believe it, that this was a Nick Sirianni decision. That's number one. And number two, the fact that they were able to go through this process, and even though it took a long time, it proved to be fruitful. They had four finalists, and they got two of them, one to be the offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion, and then Josh Grizzard coming in as the passing game coordinator. So, they got what they wanted from the perspective of an outside perspective of looking at this offense and trying to solve some of the problems, the new ideas, the freshness of it, and then the part of play calling and play calling experience. Obviously, they couldn't get it from the guys they wanted, so they just wanted to go with upside and who they think the potential best coaches are going to be down the road.
So they get Mannion here, who has no play calling experience. He was the quarterback coach here. He gets the job of play caller. Today, they bring in Josh Grizzard, who was the play caller, but a pass game coordinator before that. He gets a one-and-done season in Tampa Bay, fired after just 1 year in Tampa. But they marry him with Mannion, and now it's kind of like a completely different look to that room with a lot of different philosophies than what the Eagles have brought to that room in the past.
Yeah, but I think more than a philosophy, I think it's about finding guys who can, find solutions. And I think it's more about, look, I've been pretty consistent about those who want the offense to change. And, I've started taking it from the other side. It's like, if you look at the Sean McVays of the world, if you look at the Kyle Shanahans of the world, they're not asking Matthew Stafford to run Jalen Hurts style of offense. They're not asking Brock Purdy to run a Jalen Hurts style of offense. So why would you ask Jalen Hurts to run a Matthew Stafford offense or a Brock Purdy offense? In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. But from the perspective of the Eagles, look, they don't want a scheme. I think they're one of the teams that is more forward thinking than others, and the old adage in the NFL is if you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. They're not hiring the scheme; they're hiring good coaches. And and I think you saw this with Kellen Moore. Look, Kellen Moore's offenses in Dallas and with the Chargers look nothing like his offense in Philadelphia. Nothing. And his offense in New Orleans this year looked nothing like his offense in Philadelphia. But when he was in Philadelphia, he morphed his offense around the talent that he had. I think that's what they're looking for from Sean Mannion and Josh Broussard, and they just think they're smart football minds and smart offensive minds, and that they can do that.
Well, these guys are from, obviously a lot different trees with a lot different philosophies. You got a guy who played for Sean McVay, played for Kevin O'Connell, worked with Matt LaFleur. The other guy worked with Mike McDaniel, Liam Cohen. Do you anticipate that they brought these guys in to change the look of the offense, or will we get back to you got to run Nick's plays, this is what you got to do, and just sprinkle in a little bit of your stuff here and there?
Yeah, I don't think, and that's partially Nick's fault because for 3 years he called it his offense, and then he shifted toward the Eagles' offense, which I think is a better description. Because it will change when it needs to change, and by that I mean it's professional football. From a personnel standpoint, it's a very quick moving industry, so you're not going to have the same talent for 10-year periods. So you have a certain shelf life with a certain core group of guys, and you build around them. And then when it shifts, you build around. You might build a completely different way. To me, the definition of great coaches, and not only me, it's been told to me for many years: maximize the strengths, minimize the deficiencies. That's the goal. Everybody, every player. And, it starts certainly on offense with the quarterback. Every player has certain strengths and certain deficiencies. You build around the strengths. You don't say, hey, let's pound the square peg in the round hole and say, no, we're going to force you to work on the deficiencies. And by hook or by crook, we're going to play this scheme. That's not the goal.
Right.
And if it is the goal, the best example of this is Kyle Shanahan, who does want to play a particular scheme and does obviously have tremendous and should, because half the league is built on his and really his father's foundation of offense. Look at Trey Lance when they drafted him top 5, and he said, you know what, I'm going to play the 7th round pick. Because the top 5 pick can't play my offense. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go that route, you have to change the quarterback.
Well, how much then did the quarterback have any input, any say on what happened the last 48 hours, 24 hours?
No. Well, I'm sure they kept him abreast of it, but no real decision-making ability. No.
So did they bring in these two guys, one with no play calling experience, and the other guy's got 1 year of play calling experience? And basically, is this a way for Nick to say, this guy, you guys go to work, now I can put my attention in other places?
No, I think it's far simpler than that. It's this team has had a lot of success over the last 5 years, but they had tremendous success between year 2 and year 4. Really, not only team success, but as an offense, top 10 offenses for the most part. Even in the collapse year, they were number 8 overall. And I think the goal is to get back to that level of efficiency. And what they want is guys who can solve some of the issues that they couldn't solve last year. And they think these guys are smart enough to do it. And we'll see. But, there's a lot of
like I see
because they lack experience.
Right. And it's almost like, I see you can look at it from a couple of different, like Nick says, hey, look, I look at myself in the mirror and say, my offense got us 5 years. It was fun while it lasted. It's time to do something different, and I'm willing to kind of do that for the betterment of the organization and let these two, new philosophies or minds come in here and see what they can do for us.
Well, you can do that, but if they're good coaches, they're going to land in the same place. That's what happened with Kellen Moore. You're going to land in the same place for the most part. There'll be little tweaks, but the foundation of the thing will be built around the strengths of the players. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles, that has meant the offensive line, the run game, and the quarterback's ability to be the plus one and do effective things in the passing game when the run game is clicking. That's what the Eagles have been for 5 years. Not because that's the offense that Nick Sirianni wanted to run. And one of the reasons he got, and you saw that the first 7 games of his rookie season, he was running a completely different offense. He was running the offense he was running in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah. I've talked about this a lot over the last month or so. Is you go back to his first 7 games when Nick was the play caller, he was throwing the ball 40 times a game, and that wasn't working. And that is really after the 7th game of his rookie season, that is when the Philadelphia Eagles, as we now know them, were kind of born.
Yeah, that's what good coaches do. He realized that it wasn't working, and he said, I got to build around the strengths of this guy. And by the way, how he got the job was selling that to Jeffrey Lurie. But that was a big part of what he pointed out in Indianapolis because of circumstance. Andrew Luck retired early. They did not expect that. They had to build a completely new offense for Jacoby Brissett, and it was pretty good from a standpoint, but they knew they had some limitations there, so they went out and got Phillip Rivers, and they had obviously a different style of quarterback. They had to run a completely different offense. You don't just go into a season, well, you shouldn't, and say, I'm going to run this by hell or high water. I think the disconnect. And you can hear the frustration probably in my voice. I don't understand why people can't understand that. You don't just say, I'm going to run Kyle Shanahan's offense. If you don't have a natural play-action drop-back thrower who throws with anticipation and timing and all, again, for the delicate sensibilities of the people that don't want to criticize Jalen Hurts, it's not even a criticism. I would not ask, again, Matthew Stafford or Brock Purdy to run the Eagles' offense. So why would you ask him to run their offense?
So with what is coming in, who should be excited about the changes now? If you're on this team, you're a skill guy. You look at Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard, a pass game coordinator, quarterback coach, guy who's been in, recently in Green Bay, what they do there. I mean, does anybody look at that and say, all right, things are going to be a little different here, and I'm excited about it?
Well, I think players, for the most part, operate as, hopefully they'll give them a chance, number one, but I think they operate as, I think it would be more of, say, if the Eagles decide to move on from A.J. Brown. Well, I think Devontae Smith probably gets excited at being a wide receiver one. But, I kind of look at it from the other perspective. I think the best indication that Sean Mannion has and Josh Grizzard has of being successful, or at least dubbed successful as rookies at their jobs, would be the fact that so many of the core players on this team had down years. And I think they're going to be very, very motivated to prove that was just a bad year, and they're going to play better. So I think that bodes well for both of them.
Right. You get that, it seems to happen a lot. Obviously, one year the guy gets a head coaching job, the next guy gets promoted, he gets fired, they go outside, they bring somebody else in. So if you're just following that seems to go pretty well. But, they did a lot of due diligence here, John, and they have generally when they hire from outside and talk to as many people as they do, it seems that they usually settle in on the right guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a little revisionist history there, but, the Eagles obviously want to play it up that way. But I think, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And we talked about it. They wanted Adam Gase back in the day, and, he had a lot of demands, and they're like, really? You're going to demand all this? And they said, no, well, all right, we're going to talk to some other people. And then they wanted Ben McAdoo, and all of a sudden, Ben McAdoo agrees to be the coach, and he's driving down the Jersey Turnpike, as the legend goes, and the Giants convinced him to turn around. And they ended up on Doug Peterson. And, by no means was that the plan, or is that the result of a diligent search. It was, oh, crap, the guy we wanted changed his mind, and we got to go find the next guy.
Right.
Similar to when Nick was hired, they made a decision on Doug so late they weren't allowed to speak to the hot candidates at the time, which were Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh, Brandon Staley. They actually got sort of cursory interviews with Smith and Saleh, just as sort of like Mike McDaniel Zoom calls. Well, I'm going to do it out of professional courtesy. But they were already way down the road. Smith was going to be the head coach in Atlanta. He knew it. Saleh was going to be the head coach with the Jets. He knew it. Staley was the one guy who said, nah, I'm not going to bother talking to you, because he didn't think Howie would hire or Jeffrey would hire a defensive guy to begin with. So those were the three hot guys. They didn't get any of them, didn't get close to them. None of them were successful. And then they wanted Josh McDaniels, and Jeffrey Lurie kind of went, I don't think you guys will get along long term, Howie and Josh McDaniels. And probably right. And they end up on Nick Sirianni. You can spin it.
Sure.
But that's what happens. And here they wanted Mike McDaniel. They wanted Brian Daboll. And people say, was Sean Mannion even on your radar? A number of people have asked me that. And I said, no, he wasn't even on the Eagles' radar. He only got on their radar because they weren't able to get the guys they wanted, and they had to expand the search. And they got to him, and they liked him, and they gave him the job. Hopefully it works.
John McMullen, Birds 365, Sports Illustrated. So in the end, I mean, Sean Mannion, obviously very little experience. Do we feel that, though, this is going to work out for them?
Yeah, well, hey, give them a chance, and we'll see. What I do think is,
like, do you like them going this route as opposed to Matt Nagy or, somebody that may have had some more experience, but you know what you're kind of getting?
No, I mean, for where they are, I've been, I advocated going Matt Nagy about a week ago. I started that route. Look, I think they're still a Super Bowl contender if they make the right moves in this offseason. And, it's going to be very difficult for a first-time play caller who's been coaching for 2 years to not have some growing pains. And I think for this team at this time, I would have went with more of a veteran presence. But, for a long term, if this guy's Roy Hobbs, if this guy's the natural, you're swinging for the fences, maybe you have something big down the road. But even that, I say, how is that going to develop? Because let's say he is the natural and they go win the Super Bowl. Well, he's going to be a head coach somewhere else, and we're going through this again, and we're having the same conversation.
Well, I agree with that, but this is where Grizzard comes in and at least has play calling and has been a coordinator, and they marry together, and then you do what you did the last time, and maybe it works out a little better. Mannion has a great job, you have a special year, he gets hired, and then you promote the guy from within. But he had been a play caller before, as opposed to handing the keys over to Petula, who had never done it before.
Yeah, well, there's no guarantee. That's
your perfect ending. That's your Hollywood ending, right? You bring these two guys in, you win the Super Bowl, Mannion gets hired, and Grizzard, hey, congratulations, you're promoted. And people aren't flipping out as much because it's like, well, he was the play caller in Tampa. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, maybe they won't flip out as much, but the irony is, Josh doesn't have much more experience than Sean.
Right.
I mean, Josh is 35 now. He was in Miami for 7 years. Most of that was in quality control, which is entry level. Then he got his big break to be the passing game coordinator under Liam Cohen. They had a big year offensively. Liam Cohen gets the Jacksonville job. They elevate him. This sounds familiar? And he doesn't do nearly as well. Now, part of that was injury. Look, they had a lot of injuries, Tampa Bay. Mike Evans missed a lot of time. Bucky Irving missed a lot of time. Tristan Wirfs missed some significant time.
Yeah.
They had a lot of injuries but they went from a top 5 offense to 21st, I believe.
Right. Well,
and
everybody tries to spin, hey, he was the pass game coordinator the year before, and he designed all the third down plays, and they were 50%. It's just funny how these guys kind of find these little niches, and it's like, he was the pass game coordinator where they were really good, and then he got promoted. And as I spoke to somebody in Tampa today about him, virtually said the same thing. He got off to a hot start, then they had a lot of injuries. The offensive line was banged up. Baker started to press, and he kind of mentioned him as a scapegoat, as that team kind of needed to do something.
I definitely think it was a scapegoat because anytime you hire a first-time play caller, you should expect some growing pains. But we know how that works, and it's not just Philadelphia, and because Tampa's a perfect example.
Do you feel you feel any different if these roles were reversed? Grizzard's the play caller, and Mannion's here as the pass game coordinator, or not really any different?
Because no. I mean, you're talking about 1 year versus no experience, and you're talking about. I say it all the time, and I probably said it on your show numerous times. 90% of play calling is done during the week, and the other 10% on game day, which is when you choose the plays that you already have in the game plan. That's about feel, and that's where the great play callers separate themselves from the average play callers, the guys who have a true feel for it, the guys who have a feel for the sequencing, the guys who have a feel for one play, I'm going to run it here to set up something down the line. Those are the great play callers. And you only know that when you see it, sort of. And if Sean Mannion has that feel, well, it doesn't matter that he's got 1 year advantage on him. He's going to be a better play caller.
Yeah. All right, John McMullen, there you go. And obviously now you got that together, and now the next phase is who stays, who goes. We'll be checking in on all that. Coming up, of course, is free agency. We'll be creeping up soon. Then the draft, the Eagles offseason, a big one for them. They got a lot of big free agent decisions. Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, Jalen Phillips, probably. Which one are you most intrigued by?
Well, definitely Jalen Phillips, because I think he's going to make a lot of money. I think he's very important. There aren't a lot of edge rushers set to be on the open market, so that his number could get pushed up probably where it should be. That the new salary cap number just came out. It's going to be over $300 million, so it's increasing greatly again. So for those looking at, you almost have to have a walkaway number, and I think Jalen Phillips is the kind of guy. He's 27 years old. He might get a lot of money, and that's going to be a difficult decision for the Eagles. The other ones, look, I love Nakobe Dean. I wish you could bring him back, but you can't unless it's a 1 year prove-it deal, which I don't think it will be. I think someone will give him 2 years at starter money. So I think that's sort of like an Isaiah Rodgers situation. You're going to lose out. And then Reed Blankenship, I think, will be back because he had a bad year and he's not going to get a ton of money. And I think the Eagles will want him back and bring him back because of his leadership and his, Vic loves him. So to me, by far the most interesting and toughest one is Jalen Phillips.
All right, well, of course, we'll start turning our attention there here as the calendar flips to February. John McMullen will have more on Birds 365, and you can check him out at JF McMullen on the Twitter X platform, and, of course, at Sports Illustrated. John, have a good weekend, man.
All right, you too, Mike.
All right, there he is, John McMullen, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Always giving us the insight you need on the Eagles, keeping it real as always, and the Eagles get Mannion to call plays, Grizzard to design the passing game. The Eagles' offense looks a lot different today than it did the other day, but John is saying, well, not if Jalen Hurts can't run some of the stuff that they want to run. That's going to be a big factor in all of this. Your guys' thoughts, 609-403-0973. Coming up, it is today's edition of Nick's Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw joins us. The Sixers win last night. Joel Embiid said something very interesting after the game. The Nuggets will dive into that. Plus, Marc Zumoff, the voice of the 76ers for decades, will take us down memory lane. A look back at the 0-1 Sixers, who will celebrate this weekend in Philadelphia. Marc Zumoff at 4:30 today will join me. Sal Paolantonio, Evan Cohen, and Football at 4 in 34 minutes from now. Don't go away. I am Mike Gill, and this is the Sports Bash. Johnny Mack on the Eagles. They hired a offensive coordinator yesterday. Today, a pass game coordinator. One guy's called plays. One guy hasn't. One will now. One guy won't. Kind of crazy, but it looks like the Eagles are putting together a pretty solid staff moving forward. Big Sixer win last night. That was ugly early. Got fun late. By the way, Nuggets early right now because Marc Zumoff is going to be joining us in the Nuggets spot today at 4:30. So we're having an early edition of the Nuggets right now. Nikki Earnshaw is back with today's edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? Listen, I'm a team player. I like to think of myself as a team player, moving spots. I mean, I had moved spots for Marc Zumoff, the absolute legend. I mean, come on.
We're gonna take a little walk down memory road, down memory lane, if you will. Marc Zumoff, the voice of the 0-1 Sixers. They're having that night tomorrow night to commemorate that team.
Yeah.
And Marc will be there. He's gonna be a big part of it. So he'll be joining us at 4:30 to talk about that season. So that'll be fun in about an hour from now.
Yeah, that's going to be an outstanding listen. The 0-1 team. I was 1 year old during that. So all I got is YouTube. All I've had growing up is the highlights and enjoying going back, looking at box scores. So listen, I'm excited to hear that. Tom McGinnis last night, he talked post game and he went on. He told so many stories regarding that team. It was an outstanding listen. McGinnis is the man. Zumoff the man. That 0-1 season, a special season in the lore of Philadelphia sports. Yeah, they didn't win the championship, but man, was that was a year to remember in Philly sports. Hopefully we could get another one because that's the last time, Mike Gill, that the Sixers got out of the second round. Was that year 0-1? 0-1 was the last time they got out of the second round. That was it. That was the last time.
That's kind of crazy to think that they haven't got out of the second round, not even to a conference finals in now 25 years. But hey, I remember it vividly. That summer was unbelievable. It was every other night, the Buck series, the Raptor series. I mean, every night you were invested in that team. Yeah,
I'm sure. I was very young at that time. The highlights I get to watch on YouTube, I don't think they do it justice. I can imagine. And that was the big thing back then with all the flags. All the cars had the flags, right? That was like the big kind of trend then.
Yeah, you would drive around and you would have people with the flags kind of hanging from the window.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
God, we need that back. And we might have a team
to get us there, right?
We might have a team to do it. I'll get a flag. I'll put that right on my car. I got the Super Bowl bumper sticker. I'll put the Sixers flag. We'll be all ready to go, all filled up. And, speaking of this team, Joel Embiid made some interesting comments last night after the game. Saying, quote, in the past, we've been ducking the tax, so hopefully we think about improving the team at the deadline because we got a chance. How about that, Mike? Comments from Joel Embiid after a win, close game, a little too close for me, against the Kings last night, but he wants them to go for it. I mean, there's a different feel to this team this year, and the big man kind of calling out the front office saying, hey, muster up a little bit of cash, a little dough. Don't worry about the tax. Let's go for it this year. Let's have a year.
I will say, I don't know what he's talking about with that, though. When have they made trades that made it feel like they were ducking the tax? I was trying to think back, like, when did they do that? Last year, you can say they did, but the team was a disaster, and Joel was hurt the whole year. But when else did they make trades that were essentially to get under that? I don't remember that happening. Am I wrong? I don't know. Maybe I am wrong. I don't remember.
Well, I think for me, the way I took it was like, I think because the talk's been about the tax this year specifically is like, just go for it. Like, let's not worry about it. Like, when we have a team this year, I think he's trying to say like, we might have worried about numbers in the past, maybe just going into the season, etc. We have a team, we have a good enough roster to go for it this year. Let's improve. Let's not like trade Andre Drummond when we struggle at rebounding. Let's add to the roster. Let's make moves that'll help us develop this year and win right now, not just into the future or worrying about money.
I can get behind what he's saying. I'm just trying to go back to a time where they made a trade that is what he is describing, that they were more concerned. Because, in other words, he's trying to paint the picture that I guess people are going to jump on and say that ownership hasn't helped the team out. And I'm trying to think back to when they did that. I don't remember them giving away players because of money reasons and the trade being them losing the trade because of that. So it doesn't make sense to me what he said. It makes sense what you're saying. That didn't sound like what he said, though. And I get what his point is. Hey, we got a good group of guys. We like this team. Let's go for it here. When there has been a lot of talk about, hey, maybe you move Drummond, maybe you move Oubre, they're over the tax. But his insinuation was that they've done it in the past, and that's hurt them. I don't know that that's accurate. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I don't recall making a deal that was, man, we traded the better players to try to save money.
I don't remember, like, the time where it was, like, such a big deal with the tax at the deadline with the Sixers.
Me neither. That's why what he said doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
What makes sense to me is, like, the way I kind of took it is, like, let's not worry about the tax. Let's go for it. Like, that's the way I felt from that. And I mean, he's kind of right. Like, they do have a good enough team, and right now they're healthy. The vibes are there. You know, Kelly Oubre has different handshakes with all the players. I mean, there's different vibes.
The team is too inconsistent. They're about a 500 team since the start of the season. I mean, this is a team that I think they got off, if memory serves, they were like 4-0 to start the season, and since that time, they've been just kind of hovering. Now, we talked about this yesterday with MKB. The fact that they are, I believe after last night, I want to say they're 3 games or 4 games behind the 2 seed, and yet they're only like a game and a half out of the play-in tournament. So the margin of error in the Eastern Conference is actually they're 1 game out of the play-in, and they are 3 games behind the Knicks and the Celtics for the 2 seed. So they're just as close to the Knicks and the Celtics pretty much as they are to getting dumped out of the playoff mix here. So if one move might boost you up to the 2 seed as opposed to falling back, everybody's going to be trying to do something here. We're going to see. Is Boston going to try to improve? Are the Knicks going to try to improve? There's a lot of talk about Karl Anthony Towns, and he's a little salty. He keeps hearing his name in trade. Yeah, he shouldn't have traded for him in the first place. I told the Knicks that when they made that trade.
Dumb trade,
yeah. So we'll see. The Eastern Conference, these teams might be saying, hey, look, it's wide open. Let's do something to separate ourselves. And I think Joel's making his pitch that we should do something to separate ourselves, not stay where we are.
Yep, I think that's the pitch. Like, hey, let's elevate this roster. Let's go get somebody that gets some boards, right? Like that's what he's trying to say here, because he's like, the East is wide open, right? And you just kind of laid it out. The standings, they're within a couple of games of the top seeds, right? And there are a couple of games within the play-in. So it's like a couple of games here and there. Stretch could change where you're at in the standings and where you're seated in heading into the playoffs. So that's how wide open the East is. He wants to go for it. And I'm with them. Try it. You have your 2 guys in Maxey and Edgecombe who are going to lead you into the future. You have Paul George and Embiid right now who are playing pretty well. They're relatively healthy. You knock on wood and hope that it stays that way. But the roster is good enough. I mean, they're good enough to compete with anybody in the East. That's for sure. I don't know about, if they were to move on and play a team in the West, like, the Thunder or something. I don't know about that. But in the East, it's open.
The East is open. Barkley said it the other day. He said if Embiid's healthy, that the Pistons can't beat the Sixers. I don't know that that's the case. I think what he really means is that they're just as good as anybody else. You'll go into a series. Detroit could win it. Philadelphia could win it. Is Detroit the favorite? Probably. But you probably have, with Embiid and Maxey, I know Cade Cunningham's a stud too. They're the 3 best players in the series. Same with the Knicks-Sixers thing. You got Maxey, you got Brunson, you got Embiid. The way Embiid's playing right now, I mean, I saw this morning. Realistically, Embiid offensively is pretty much back to about where he was offensively. I mean, he's doing everything. Would you like to see him rebound more? 100%. But that's been his MO his entire time. You've been frustrated with him not rebounding enough for a guy 7'2". But in his last 18 games, he has 9 30 or more points games. He's averaging 29.4, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He's shooting 52% from the field, 85% from the line. He's back to being Joel Embiid, and nobody thought you were getting this Joel Embiid. So now that you have him, you have to say, hey, if this Joel Embiid is what I'm getting in the playoffs, we got a shot. If this Paul George is what I'm getting in the playoffs, we got a shot. Why? because it's more than just those two guys. You got Edgecombe. You got Maxey. I'd like to see McCain get a little bit more footing here. And they have some other pieces. They got some guys who do some dirty work. The biggest problem they have is they simply don't rebound the basketball enough, number one. And number two, the intangible guy. They don't have the grinder, the dirty work, the guy who gets the loot. I mean, Edgecombe's kind of that guy at times, but, you need another one of those guys who just is out there to rebound and defend and be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they need like the PJ Tucker that they had a couple of years ago, right? Like they need that type of scrappy player. I mean, VJ's kind of that, but not really. They need someone who could come off the bench and just be annoying, be a pest, like Pat Bev was years ago, right? Like that type of player. They need that grinder who's going to play good defense, get you a rebound, fight for a loose ball. They don't have that, and they need to find that guy if they want to elevate this team, and make a run here. Because they have a lot of trouble rebounding. It's been a problem. And it's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine just about the Sixers and where they're at right now, right? And we didn't think Embiid would get back to where he is right now. We thought, there was talk about the retirement thing. Like, all right, isn't he so bad where he's going to retire? I mean, that got floated at some point within the past year. And now he's back to where he is. The Sixers are within a playoff spot, back to kind of in the mix, right? Could even end up being a 2 seed. Who knows? They go on a little run and get some help. But if you're just a Sixers fan, all that you've kind of been through with the process, all these different stars, trades, different coaches, different GMs, all this, can't you just enjoy where they're at right now? Like, just enjoy the ride where you're at. That's all I tried to explain to them, because there's some people that are still on the fence. Talk to me when they get to the second round. You might not have that for a while. You know what I mean? You might not have competitive basketball. Last year, you didn't have it at all. The Flyers stink right now. I'm making the case for the Sixers. Like, just enjoy the ride. Don't have expectations for this team. Just see where it goes. That's all. That would be my case.
I do think, though, that there are a lot of people who are there, where they're saying, you know what? The last couple of years, I've been saying, just get to me in the playoffs. I think there are people who are just legitimately saying, you know what? I'm just enjoying watching the team. And VJ.
Because how bad was last year? Like, how bad was last year?
In the history. It was the worst season in the history of the franchise.
So I think that should change a little bit. Don't have an expectation of going to the finals or get past second round, whatever. Just enjoy the good. They have a good team. They have a competitive team that's a shot.
I think most people are there. I feel like that is what's happening. Is a lot of people have just said, you know what? I don't have any expectations for this team. I'm just kind of having fun with them. I'm enjoying Maxey. I'm enjoying Edgecombe. It's unbelievable to see Max Embiid back here doing. They signed George, whatever, but he's actually contributing. I think people are kind of like night to night just seeing how is this team growing together, as opposed to I'll believe it when you get in the playoffs. Now, you do have these curmudgeon-y people that's all they care about, but I do, and I'm pleasantly surprised by this, that the building is still sold out. I'm surprised by that. I figured that, and I think that's a sign of people are just kind of like, hey, you know what? This team's kind of interesting. It's kind of, do I think it's a championship team? Not necessarily. Can they get there? Maybe. I mean, you have a Joel Embiid playing at this level. You have Tyrese Maxey playing at a very high level. You got Edgecombe playing at a very high level. You got Paul George, who, listen, is he the Paul George that is in his prime? Not necessarily. But he doesn't suck.
No. He played defense. He could hit some big threes when you need him. He had 30 points the other night. He's your fourth option. That's pretty good.
And again, the Sixers don't compete in a vacuum here. They're competing in a very flawed Eastern Conference.
Yes.
Like, if there was a team like Oklahoma City in the East, you would be saying, you probably don't have a shot to get out of the East. But in this Eastern Conference, a flawed team very much might represent the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, most of the teams are really at the same level, to say the least. I mean, that's where you're at this point. So I'm in. You know me. I've always been. I was in last year, and even when they stunk and were horrible, and it was one of the worst years ever.
I will say, I said it wasn't one of the worst years ever. It was the worst year in the history of the franchise. That said, I'm not a big bailer. Like, I'll just watch because I like basketball. Last year, that team was so uninteresting and so unenjoyable that I did bail on them. I just said, I'm not watching anymore. It's just not worth it for me. And that, to me, is a rarity. And for it to get to that point, to me, that signified the worst season ever, because like during the process years, I watched every night.
Yeah. Isaiah
That
Canyon.
season last year, I did not watch. I said, they have beaten me down. I had enough.
Yeah, because it was like, oh my God, everybody's
Like the
hurting.
Flyers this year.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a whole nother story.
By the way, I
way,
don't know if you heard any of the post-game stuff, but those guys sound like a beaten and battered group.
oof. Yeah, it's not good.
You hear any of the post-game last night? Konechny,
No, I was working the Sixers game last
Couturier.
night.
Oh, man. Couturier and Konechny, they just sounded like Konechny said the one thing. He's like, I just want to make the playoffs. And, like, he's seeing it now as the calendar's getting ready to go to February. He says, I just want to make the playoffs. And he's seeing that we're not making it. We're not going to get there again.
Yeah.
So it was pretty sad to hear like them after that game. Like you could hear that they're losing faith in their own self and the system and everything.
Yeah. Ugh, it's not good at the other side of the Xfinity Mobile Arena. I'll tell you that. By the way, shout out to our Flyers insider. Happy birthday, Kevin Durso.
Wow.
Durso's birthday today.
How about it? I did not know that Durso. I'm not like, how did you get that? Where'd you get that info?
You got to go on the line. Facebook gets it, LinkedIn. You're not on these two so often.
Nope. In fact, my own birthday was the other day, and people post like "Happy birthday, happy birthday."
I did. I posted a pic with you.
Yeah,
in one of our picks from the year.
I usually don't see that kind of stuff until a couple days later. I'm not like check every day kind of. And people are like, "Well, it was your birthday. You should have known." Well, I was a little bit.
Yeah, like people were wishing you happy birthday. No response. No response from Mike Gill at all. I'm like, oh, that's rough.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody, for the birthday wishes. That was last week.
There you go. This is why social media can be great sometimes. Now I know what everyone's birthday is. I'll give them happy birthday.
We had Durso on yesterday. If I would have known, I would have wished him a happy birthday. I didn't know his birthday was so close to mine. My cousin's birthday was yesterday. I wished him happy birthday in Arabic Egyptian because I'm going to be in Egypt in a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to learn how to speak some Arabic.
That's right. World Traveler Gill is back. You got Radio Row. You got Egypt. He's back. He's in the saddle.
Shukran, Nick.
That's good.
That would mean,
I have no idea what that means.
It means thank you. Shukran.
Oh, okay. There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome. I don't know what you're welcome is in that.
That is
in that
about
language,
as much.
there you go.
That's about as much. It's either shukran or lo shukran for no thank you, which apparently I'm going to need to learn how to say a lot of with a lot of the people who are going to be trying to get me to buy stuff when you're walking by the pyramids.
Yeah, because they're going to.
By the way, this is our last Nuggets this week. Nuggets will be boots on the ground Monday at the Moscone Center at Radio Row. So Nuggets, Grayson, and the Schweim. Although I don't know if the Schweim's getting out there.
I don't know what's happening.
Looks like his flight. Looks like his flight's starting to lose a lot of room on that flight. Anyway,
he's a last minuter because if he hadn't heard, he worked for the airline for about 25 years.
Well, I got to be fair. Schweim did get me my flight. He got me my flight. So, but my flight has. He
didn't take care of himself though.
Well, it depends on how many seats are on the flight. Yeah. Apparently, people are flying more on Monday. I'm actually not going out till Tuesday. Me, Pete G, and Gerardis, we're all flying on Tuesday. You guys are going on Monday. So boots on the ground Monday. They will be out there Monday. They're going to set up all the equipment and get the table set up and all that stuff. So maybe we'll check in for a special live at Radio Row Nuggets.
Yeah, we might have to. If I get there in time, I think I should get there around lunchtime.
You could even try to grab us some guests and put them right on the seat right there. Why don't you do that for us?
I might try.
By the way, as we're having this conversation right now, I just booked Sean Alexander.
Oh, it's my Dobbs. That was so awesome. We had him last year too. I was a big Sean Alexander guy growing up. Had his jersey and everything.
MVP, rushing champion. Yeah. Sean Alexander is going to be joining us, it looks like, on Thursday.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites growing up for sure. Maybe we'll do a live Nugget out there.
Got to. Or, as I said, while you're out there, see if there's anybody that wants to come on the show Monday. Pete and I are going to be at Ocean Casino. We'll have them on.
Yeah, I'll do. I can get this done. You give me a task, I can get it done.
All right, coming up, we have Adam Caplan.
This is breaking.
Marc Zumoff at 4:30 today. Sal Pao tonight. Little Sal Pao's going to give us his thoughts on the Eagles coordinator situation, which has now been resolved. And then at 5:30, just confirmed, Evan Cohen is going to join us. He gave us his thoughts this morning during Unsportsmanlike. on the Eagles offensive coordinator hire. We'll talk to him at 5:30 tonight right here on the Sports Bash. All right, Nugs, appreciate it, man.
Peace.
All right, there you go. Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And, of course, you can watch the show live on the YouTube channel. Search 973 ESPN. When we come back, it is today's edition of Football at 4. It's coming up with Adam Caplan right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Go to the Fanatics Sportsbook for Super Bowl 60. You can check out all the action. We'll be there on Monday. We'll have football in 4. Adam Caplan, what does he expect from Sean Mannion as the Eagles offensive coordinator? How is he viewed around the NFL? We're going to get into that coming up on today's edition of Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. A couple of minutes, Adam will be here on the show, and, of course, we'll talk a little birds with him. And then, obviously, we've been talking about throughout the show, Marc Zumoff's going to join us. I say obviously. If you weren't listening earlier, you wouldn't know that. But Marc Zumoff at 4:30 today. Marc is, of course, the voice of the Philadelphia 76ers for decades and was the voice of the Sixers during their run to the NBA Finals. The last time the Sixers have made the finals. And, you know, we're going to talk to Marc about it in about a half an hour, but that was an improbable run. You know, it wasn't like people had the Sixers penciled in for a team to make a run to the championship. So we'll take a little stroll down memory lane coming up at 4:30 for Sixer fans out there who remember fondly the 2001 Philadelphia 76ers. And if you're listening right now, what is something that you remember the most about that 2001 Sixers team? Text it in 609-403-0973. When I say the 01 Sixers, what are kind of some of the first memories that come to your head about that particular team? We'll dive down that with Marc Zumoff coming up. We're going to shift over to this Eagles news that came down yesterday and today, by the way. If you didn't hear earlier today, Josh Grizzard is the new pass game coordinator with the Buccaneers. He was the offensive coordinator this year. He was the pass game coordinator last year. He was a one-and-done Buccaneer play caller this year. And he took over an offense that, hey, look, in 2024 with Liam Cohen, it got Liam Cohen a head coaching job. They were one of the best offenses in football in 2024. Last year, he takes over the offense that was one of the best passing teams in 2024. They fall down to number 22 in yards per attempt and number 20 in yards last season. So Grizzard did take a little step back. Why? Well, they had offensive line issues. Mike Evans got hurt. Godwin got hurt. The running back, Bucky Irving, got hurt. So Josh Grizzard comes in. Go back to what you do well. He's the pass game coordinator. And then you've got Sean Mannion, who will now be the offensive coordinator. He will call the plays. And the Eagles have a completely new look in that offensive playroom. Whether or not Nick Sirianni, though, will have a big say, we're going to get into that with Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, it is Football at 4 on this Friday edition. Let's see what Adam Caplan thinks about the decision by Philadelphia and what we can expect from Sean Mannion as the coordinator. Josh Grizzard is also in the building as well. Both guys, Adam, interviewed for the job, but it is Mannion who wins out. He'll be the play caller. Grizzard will be the pass game coordinator. Kind of an interesting turn of events all of a sudden.
Yeah, good for Grizzard to be willing to do it. Sometimes guys are hurt by it, and they're like, I'm not doing that. Hell with that team. They'll just move on. But it's really interesting because I don't, other than the West Coast offense, which they both are totally engrossed in, I don't know how much crossover there is, but I have a lot of interesting information on this situation because I've talked to a lot of coaches over the last week on some of the candidates. I cover 32 teams, not one, but some things came up, and Mannion really became a hot name 48 hours before he was hired. Like I said in our live stream last night, if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said, come on, dude, Sean Mannion, get out of here. He's only coached 2 years. But when some of the dominoes, look, the Eagles had a list. Mannion was on it. He was further down because Brian Daboll, as I told you 3 weeks ago, was their number one guy. It just didn't work out. Mike McDaniel, when I say that, Mike McDaniel never considered it, so it was really just Daboll. And Daboll, as I told you, was never coming here because the Titans put the major full court press on him. He used the Eagles as a couple other teams as a backup plan if something fell through, but it was never going to fall through. So Daboll is now safely in Tennessee, and I give the Eagles credit, Mike. They wanted to be forward-thinking. they went to the Mike Holmgren tree in 1999. No one. I mean, when they did this with Andy Reid, I remember this was in the infancy of the internet. I'm like, are they out of their mind? Who is Andy Reid? Right?
By the way, ironically enough, he held the same position that Sean Mannion held in Green Bay.
Right. Now, Andy had never called plays and never been a coordinator. So Sean, now the difference is there's a major difference. Andy had been coaching for a while where Mannion is not. He just finished his second season. And that's the thing about this being in this market and being the pressure cooker, like you're going to feel it. I've talked to coaches of several dozen coaches who've worked in this market. They're aware of it. Like they're aware of the demands of the job. They're especially if you're coaching offense, they know what Jeffrey Lurie wants, which they also, by the way, they sign up for that. Most coaches have no problem with it. They love that their owner is demanding when it comes to world-class offense. They actually like that. But sometimes the expectations are not realistic. But the scheme, Mike, is going to change. It just is. It will. It has to, and it's going to. It's not being forced. It is changing because Mannion he just knows West Coast. They're not running Sirianni's scheme anywhere. They can't do that. That's like Kellen Moore came in with a different scheme, which was kind of, by the way, it was similar, I was told, to Sirianni's. It's different from the West Coast. Kellen Moore says, as a matter of fact, because he doesn't coach the West Coast, that was Mike McCarthy's excuse to get rid of Kellen late when Kellen left Dallas because Mike wanted the offense back and he got it. But now Sean Mannion, who's more of a disciple of LaFleur, well, he coached for LaFleur, but really McVay, because remember he was drafted in the LaFleur system and he played pretty much only in it. But what I find interesting is, people have asked me already, are they going to use a fullback? Well, LaFleur, though he coached with Kyle Shanahan, LaFleur does not use a fullback. Neither does McVay, Mike. So could we see a fullback? Probably not. Don't know for sure, Mike, but probably not.
So the scheme will, in your opinion, look a lot different than what we've seen the last couple of years.
It will. Now understand just a couple things here. When you this is the way coaches explain this to me. When you're putting together your scheme, look, you if it's West Coast, if it's non-West Coast, that doesn't change. You have to run what you know. You can't run what you don't know. It doesn't work any other way. That'll never change in the history of the National Football League. You can't run particularly if you're a first-time coordinator. If you've only played and coached in the West Coast offense, that's what you're running. That's not even up to discussion. Like that's what you run now. When it comes to personnel groupings, this is a big deal. This comes down to the personnel that you inherit. Most coaches will tell you that you may come in, as Kellen Moore wanted to do. Kellen Moore wanted to be a heavy 11 personnel team and some 10 personnel. Now, things change when they sign Saquon Barkley, and they weren't very deep at receiver. And to Kellen's credit, he coached to what he had, and that's. I know the passing game wasn't very good. That's a fact. I'm going to argue against it. But they also won a Super Bowl. They found a way to make it work. Coaching is about adapting. Now, could Sean Mannion adapt? Is A.J. Brown going to be here? Who's going to be the third receiver? You and I talked, Mike, how many times have I talked to you about this? One of the new things that they have to do is they have to get the third receiver involved. It's embarrassing. One of the many embarrassing problems with this offense for years now is a lack of diversity in terms of personnel groupings. And using a third receiver, it's one thing to play 11 personnel. It's one thing, and this nonsensical excuse, well, Sirianni's like, A.J. has to get it, and Devontae's got to get it, and Goddard has to get it. Okay, we know that. But there are plenty of offenses where teams have two good receivers and a good tight end, and the third receiver gets involved. So that was always an excuse for me, for Nick. He just could never figure it out within his offense, and whoever's calling the plays was kind of pigeonholed. So to me, Mike, when you look at this thing, if it's going to be what we think it's going to be more McVay than anything, McVay up until this past season, if they didn't lead in 11 personnel, which is three receivers, one back and one tight end, they were near the top. Now, this is the first year in McVay's career that they were really down 11 personnel. I don't know what happened other than they had a ton of tight ends on the roster, four guys who they could use, and they took Terrence Ferguson in the second round, and They played a ton of 12 and even some 13 personnel, which is three tight ends. So, look, you can evolve, but again, Mannion's roots are clearly in McVay.
Well, and we'll see how they look different and how the personnel usage will be different as well. I mean, do you get more variety of the running game? I mean, hey, we talked a lot about last year. How about giving Bigsby a couple more touches? Maybe you do see a little bit more rotation and stuff like that.
All right, so Josh Grizzard. Now, he comes from the McDaniel/Shanahan tree. Now, they use a fullback. They used a fullback. They've always used a fullback with Kyle Juszczyk, and who's the highest paid fullback in NFL history. Now, I get that Grizzard didn't coach for Shanahan, but the system that Grizzard coached in, that he learned it in, because he was actually, I don't know if you know this, he was on McDaniel's staff. He was actually in Miami 2 years before McDaniel got there, and he kept him smartly. I don't know if they knew each other. And then he learned the McDaniel system. Now, one thing I will always tell you, Mike, and I've learned this the hard way, not every disciple runs it the same way than the master does. Like, not every Fangio disciple runs it just like Vic does. That you never run it exactly the same. Andy Reid, boy, was he a departure from Mike Holmgren. He just was. Mike Holmgren and Mike Shanahan saw kind of the same way. Shanahan was really, really big-time timing based, and his son Kyle the same, and Kyle's taken it to the extreme. I just think it's cool, Mike. Now, personnel usage, typically now, Kyle Shanahan, almost his entire career, likes to use just one back, very little in the second back. Brian Robinson, who they acquired from the Commanders, the Niners did. So he would spell McCaffrey a little bit, but that's the point you made on Bigsby. Will they use Bigsby a little bit more? Now I know we could be fooled in OTAs and training camp. We've been fooled before. It's one thing, Mike. I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually in like my top 20 questions about a first-time play caller in Mannion. How does he see a rotation? Because Matt LaFleur loves to rotate his backs. Now, yes, a little bit less with Josh Jacobs lately, but he did when Aaron Jones was there. It was Jones on third. It was Jones as a changeup, and he was the lead back. And then they would try to put a power back in. And once Jacobs came in there, because of his contract and just because of his size, he needed more work, so he changed it up. So I'm interested to see how Sean Mannion sees this thing.
All right, so the influences that Mannion brings to the table are very interesting because he's been around multiple interesting offensive minds as a player, and obviously one as a coach with LaFleur, but he did play in L.A. with the Rams, and he also spent some time with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. So he's got a lot of very high-profile minds that he has been around.
Yeah, oh, by the way, that's the one that I wanted to mention is O'Connell. Again, O'Connell was a former non-play calling OC for the Rams. So, yeah, it's pretty much McVay, but I'm really interested to see what Josh Grizzard, who's going to be the pass game coordinator, do they incorporate the Shanahan concepts? Shanahan is more 12 personnel, way more than Sean McVay. They both coached. It's always who you're in. The way it's been explained to me for 25 years, your scheme and your personnel usage is based not solely, mostly on your biggest influences. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're going to see a lot of McVay. Now, again, Mike, and we'll move on in a second from the subject, if they don't have a quality third receiver, now you could force it. Like, I'll give you an example. In 2020, Brian Schottenheimer with Russell Wilson, Wilson's best half of the season by far, when he had 28 passing touchdowns in games with Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer had David Moore as his third receiver. Jeff and I laugh about this. He was going to use literally a tackling dummy as a third receiver. Like he just is like, I'm going 11 personnel, we're going spread, and I'm just going to do this. A lot of coaches don't agree with that. That when you force it, that's going to be because we don't know about Manning because he's never called plays. He's only coached for 2 years.
Right.
He's only run a room. This is very important for educational purposes. When you're looking to evaluate a coach in experience, he doesn't have to be 50 years old. He could be 37 or 35, but if he's coached for 8 years, that's fine. This guy's only coached 2 years. He's only run a room 1 year. And David Blau, for instance, who's similar, he's now the Washington Commandos OC. He's in his third year in coaching. He never ran a room full-time. He was the interim quarterbacks coach. So that's also a gamble for Washington. How about these two teams The Commandos and Eagles going very, very young and inexperienced on their offensive coordinator choices.
Yes, indeed. And the Giants still don't have a coordinator, so keep an eye on that. Lastly, when we look at Sean Mannion, 2 years as a coach, but the Eagles jump in here because he's obviously got to be viewed around the NFL pretty highly.
I did. So, Mike, what is today, Friday? So I'm going to say Wednesday morning I talked to people from around the league who are connected to Mannion. They've either coached him, been around him. Really forward-thinking guy, sees the game differently. He's another guy like Davis Webb, who I will bet the house will be a head coach someday. He's a journeyman quarterback. Davis Webb is now the OC for Denver. You kind of know it when you talk to people, when you know that they're going, like Sean Mannion barely played in the NFL. He was, in terms of being on the field, as you know, Mike, he was basically number 3, a little bit of a number 2, but mostly a number 3. But you kind of know when you talk to people that when they're super smart, this guy's really sharp. But you don't know about a coach until he's under pressure, until he deals with, and we haven't even talked about this. This will be probably the last subject, which could be, we'll give you the Cliff Notes version, folks. This would take 20 minutes if we really had time. It'll take a minute and a half. He's got to develop a relationship with Jalen Hurts, and they have to figure out are they going to bring the run game back? Boy, was that missing last season, Mike. With that not only was their offensive line terrible, mostly in the run game, but don't you think if they would have gotten Hurts more involved, maybe it would have been a little bit better?
100%.
I don't know. We don't know what happened. Like, I know there's a lot of speculation. Oh, Hurts wants a new deal. He refused to run. Like anyone would know that. People just throw bleep against the wall and they think it will stick. Nobody knows why. Is it just because was he beat up? Well, he wasn't on the injury report ever last season, by the way, for the first time in any season that we're aware of. We just don't know. But you got to think they're going to bring that back, Mike, or at least they should consider it. We don't know for sure. That's one of the many things. And Jeff Stoutland also, which is on my list here in closing, he's been the run game coordinator, as we know in the past. Is he going to have that title? How much will he's going to the blocking schemes? They got to get together the blocking schemes because West Coast offenses are mostly zone. They'll run some gap, I was told, but it's mostly zone. That's not the way Stout sees it, but it's got to change. So there's a lot of intrigue, Mike. I know we could be fooled in OTAs, Mike. I really look forward to going and seeing this, what it looks like, and as I told our Patreon members last night. When you see these reports, if they come out, like we saw in OTAs of 2024 with Kellen Moore, just completely ignored. It means nothing. When you're installing a new offense, of course it's not going to look good. It's just, I don't know why people put that stuff out there. I told people 2 years ago, just ignore it, and I was right. Just relax, let it flow. I know there are a lot of people who are really mad at the Eagles for hiring an inexperienced coach like this. Well, they've got, at least on offense, they've had a lot of luck. They're not hitting home runs all the time, but they started doing with Andy Reid. They've done it over the years. Look, they missed on Sean Desai. That's a fact. But more often than not, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie have been right. And then when Joe Banner was there, Joe was heavily involved in it. So let's see what happens. We call it down the middle. We don't root for anybody. We're trying to be fair about this. I think some of our YouTube commenters are a little bit too hard on it. Now, there are a lot of people who are positive, Mike, and I don't know about your show in terms of texts and all that stuff. But it seems to be a little bit more positivity, though, than I also anticipated, which is a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, well, I think yesterday at first it was kind of like, wait, what? And then today with the Grizzard, like kind of adding that to the mix, having those married together, I think was kind of a little bit more intriguing of like, hey, they interviewed both of these guys and got them both, and they both come from very, successful offensive backgrounds in terms of what their style may look like. So we shall see. It'll be free agency coming up. We've got the draft, OTAs. It's going to start happening quick. Inside the Birds podcast, we'll have plenty more on the offseason. Adam Caplan will be with us for Football at 4 in San Francisco. I look forward to seeing you, friend.
Yeah, look, I remember. It just seems like yesterday when I was just there. What was the last time the Super Bowl was there?
I have never been to San Francisco before.
Well, you know what? I was still at ESPN then, I think, because someone from Philly Radio was tagging along with me, and I remember going to parties with this guy, and I just remember that it was super cold at night, Mike. Just understand, it's going to be 60s during the day, probably in the low 40s. people, I was at that Super Bowl in Phoenix when everybody got sick. You know, it was great. Nobody looks at the advanced forecast. I'm obsessive with weather, as people probably know from listening to our show. Always pack warmly. It's the Moscone Center. I've been to that before. It's a really good thing. And did I read this right in your email? Are you going to the Warriors game?
Yes, we're Tuesday night. We're going Sixers Warriors. You want to go?
Yeah. So the cool thing is, actually, you got to invite me. But real quick.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, we're all going. If you want to go, let us know.
I want to go, man. Yeah. And by the way, it's near the wharf area. I think it's not too bad. It's not. I know exact. I've looked it up before. I've never been there because I've seen the Giants play a bunch there over the years when I go to train camp out there when the Raiders and Niners were practicing, obviously in the Bay Area. Now it's just the Niners. But looking forward to seeing Mike, and we will have fun next week.
Yeah, we got some great guests already lined up. I know we have some more things that we are in the pipeline, and Adam will be out there, so he'll be joining us for his for throughout the days, and we'll be talking to a bunch of people, and a lot of stuff's already happened. But yes, if you want to go to the Sixer game, let us know. We haven't got our tickets yet.
Oh, yeah, I will. I will email you. Thanks, man.
All right, man. See ya. There you go. Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The Sixers just happened to play the Warriors while we're out there, and that is on Tuesday night. You can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, when we come back, it was a fun time. Take us back to 2001. The 76ers were heading to the finals. Who knew it was the last time they would get out of the second round? Well, Marc Zumoff described all the action that season, and he's going to bring us back down memory lane. We'll look back at the 0-1 76ers with the voice of the 76ers during that time, Marc Zumoff, who is set to join us next right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 428 Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. No Sixers tonight. They're back in action tomorrow, and it will be the 76ers' 25th anniversary reunion game before their game against the Pelicans tomorrow night, and should be a lot of fun. I was talking with Randy Ayers last week. Of course, was a coach on that staff, and then, of course, he became the coach of the Sixers, and he was telling me how excited he was to see all the crew and having dinner and all that stuff. We're going to go back and take a look at that team because really it was the last time, unbelievably, that the Sixers have been to the finals. We're going on 25 years now. And the voice who described all the action that season, a memorable season it was, is set to join us right now. Marc Zumoff is here on the Sports Bass Live on 97.3 ESPN, and he will be a part of the 25th anniversary, and we'll be seeing a lot of friendly faces, familiar faces. And Mark, first off, welcome, man, and I can't believe it's been 25 years. How about you?
So many people, Mike, have said that recently, like, where did the time go and all of that? But I'm just glad it's happening because now they can dust me off and know that I'm still living and I'm breathing.
Well, it's been a couple of years that since we've heard you, but going all the way back to that season, you know, the Sixers had struggled leading up, and then they get Allen. And what was the anticipation going into that year? Do you remember entering that year of like, hey, this might be something different, something fun? Was it feel like it was starting to kind of emerge for them?
Well, if anything, given all the back and forth with Larry Brown and Allen nearly getting traded to Detroit, I don't think people knew what to think. They were eliminated by the Pacers in the second round of the playoffs each of the previous two seasons. And I'm not sure that people actually had any kind of a feel for the team. It really, Mike, wasn't until the season actually started when you could really get excited because they went 10-0 to start the year. And one of the things that I remember saying to Steve Mix on one of the broadcasts during those first 10 games was, I just turned to Steve and I said, they are really good defensively. I mean, they are a lockdown defensive team, especially when they need to be. And this was in an era where games were in the 90s. It was much more physical. There wasn't nearly as much three-point shooting. And Larry Brown and Billy King, to their credit, loaded that team with, guys who didn't need the ball and were willing defenders. Eric Snow, Tyrone Hill, George Lynch, Theo Ratliff, later Dikembe Mutombo, may he rest in peace, who eventually that year became the Defensive Player of the Year. And so that was the hallmark of that team. They were really good defensively. They were physical in an era where you could be more physical than you are today. And they had one of the most exciting, explosive players with the ball in his hands as much as possible.
Well, Mark, you just kind of described it because as many people look back to that season, it almost never happened. So how wild was it to see this team? As you mentioned, yes, they had this, hey, they got really good defense. But the fact that they got off to a 10-0 start was the feel like almost like the 93 Phillies who got off to a great start and then they just never turned back. Did it have a feel of like, hey, they're off to a 10-0 start. This thing might actually be special.
And advance further, at one point they were 41-14. And that was the time that Larry Brown, and let me give you a little background here, Theo Ratliff had broken his wrist. I think he accidentally fell over Dirk Nowitzki, and they were missing the key spine to their defense. So that was one thing, and I'm not sure they knew when he was going to come back. And you'll remember the All-Star game that year, where Iverson and Stephon Marbury single-handedly brought the East back from the dead to win that game in Washington, D.C. Iverson's the MVP, and he's standing there as he's getting his award saying, "Where's my coach? Where's my coach?" As if to say, hey, I need to bring him out. He deserves it as well. But Larry Brown was sitting there watching Dikembe Mutombo in an All-Star game get like 20-plus rebounds and probably thinking ahead to the fact that I could face Shaquille O'Neal in the NBA Finals. I need to get him on my team, and I don't have Theo Ratliff. So in the vein of when an 8 broke, break it, they trade Theo Ratliff from a 41-14 team to get Dikembe Mutombo. They only won 15-14, I think, the rest of the way. So there were some ups and downs, even though they ended up winning 56 games with a 10-0 start. And, of course, in the first round, they end up meeting the Indiana Pacers, who they had lost to in each of the previous first 2 years. So nobody really knew what to expect then.
Yeah, we're talking with Marc Zumoff. The Sixers will have their 25th anniversary this weekend of that team that went to the finals. And, you talk about Iverson and the MVP, and then they got all these guys around them. But a guy like Eric Snow, I mean, he was just a trade that people were like, they got the third point guard from the Seattle Supersonics. What is this guy going to do? And the steadiness that he brought. And then he ended up, you had guys that you had never heard of helping this team out in some aspects. It was just a very interesting way that they put this team together. And as you said, they kept getting knocked out by Reggie Miller and the Pacers. So for what they put together to make a bold move like that, how was that received when they finally did make the move to get Mutombo?
I think that there was some mix of, hey, this guy is an all-star. He's a great defensive player. He's a Georgetown guy. He could certainly score more than Theo Ratliff. And there was, you could see a lot of people on one side saying, hey, just be patient. You'll get Theo back at some point. This was a team that went 41-14. Don't break it up. And then there were probably equal amounts on the other side saying, yeah, but who knows how Theo's going to come back if he does it all. And you got a guy like Mutombo. He's a multiple all-star, and he's a tremendous rebounder, and he gives you somebody. I mean, look, Theo was a 6'9", 220-pound guy. Not that anybody can hope to guard Shaquille O'Neal one-on-one, but you have a much better opportunity with a guy like Dikembe Mutombo than you do with Theo Ratliff. And once Larry Brown saw the way he performed in that All-Star game, he was going to go with Mutombo. But keep in mind, Mike, you had mentioned the Indiana Pacers, and we could talk about the playoffs because they were unbelievable. Here they open up that first round with the Pacers, and they lose the first game at home. And people are saying, oh, here we go again. The Pacers were on their way down, but they still had Reggie Miller. They still had the David Boys. They were still a formidable team. They were able to win games.
We lost Mark for a second. I do know that he's driving in the car up the expressway, so I would imagine he's right around that Hamilton area where he might have hit the dead zone. So we'll try to pick Marc Zumoff back up because I do want to get into that playoff run, and he's right. If you remember, the Sixers lost that first game to the Pacers, and you thought, oh, my gosh, because the Pacers had kind of been the thorn in their side, and then they take you on what is a wild run after that. The first round of the playoffs, for the third year in a row, remember, they take on Indiana, who's the 8 seed. The Sixers are the 1, the Pacers are the 8, and the 8 beats the 1. 79-78 is the score of that game. The Sixers then win the next 3, and they win that series in 4 games. We'll let Mark kind of pick up the story after that because what happened after that was just a wild ride. So we'll let Marc Zumoff pick that back up. That was the playoff game. They lost that game 79-78 at home against the 8 seed is right about where we lost you there, Mark. You must be in that little dead zone on the Expressway.
Well, exactly. I'm on the Atlantic City Expressway, and we all know that with my guy Paul and his Atlantic City Luxury Black Car Service, I'm actually headed to an event. It's a private event. And a few of the players have been taken over. As long as we stay connected, I'm still yours. So go ahead.
All right, yes. So we got you there. You talked about the playoff series. They lose game 1 to the Pacers, 79-78. They go on to win 3. But, everyone's on edge. I'd like to know what it was like after that because they had been losing to the Pacers. This was the 3rd straight season they would play Indiana, and they've got Jalen Rose and Reggie Miller and Jermaine O'Neal, and they're the 8 seed, and they come in and win game 1. Was there a lot of like, oh, boy, here we go?
Oh, it was dour. To quote Yogi, it was deja vu all over again. And I don't know if you remember that the final play, they ran it for Iverson, and I think he slipped. And it was just, it was like, like serving like 5 drinks and like spilling them all over the floor. It was just absolutely terrible. But to their credit, they came back, they won in Indiana. And then let's advance to the Toronto series, where Vince has a 50-point game. Iverson had 2 of them. And my greatest memory of that series, well, 2 of them. One, they somehow, remember Iverson had some injury issues in the playoffs. They somehow win that game 4. I think that's when George Lynch may have broken his ankle or his foot, and Larry Brown managed the game beautifully. He made it really ugly, and somehow they escaped with a win. Then they come back for game 5. Iverson gets the MVP, makes the pregame speech, and the place is in an uproar. I mean, they're just the fans, as the late great Bill Campbell used to say, are in a lather. and Iverson goes out and drops 50 plus. I think they take the first quarter from the Raptors like 31-10 or something like that, and didn't look back. And then of course they lose game 6, but they win game 7. And the way they win game 7, who could forget? It's the Vince Carter, go to North Carolina because you promised your family that you would get your degree. So he goes down for the ceremony, comes back, doesn't play particularly well, but naturally the ball's in his hands at the end. Aaron McKee has him weak side, gets picked off. Tyrone Hill gets him on a switch. He's coming towards the inbound passer to get it, turns around. I think Tyrone Hill got there just enough to maybe take him out of his rhythm, and then the potential series-winning shot hits the rim, no good, and the Sixers ended up advancing to the conference finals.
Yeah, 88-87, they win that game. But, the thing with that is it was every night. It was every other night. You were like, oh, my gosh, we got to go through this again. And you're right. They win that game 121-88, and you felt like, all right, they're done. They're out of gas. And then you go on the road and lose that game. You get blown out in Toronto and have to play game 7, and it's a nail-biter. And then the series against Milwaukee, it was every night of the week, it felt like, where you got an ulcer every single game with Glenn Robinson and Ray Allen that took you to another game 7, which, the 2 series going back-to-back game 7s, you were wondering if they had anything left once they got to the finals.
Oh, and I think at least one game that series, they just had to give Iverson a game off because, he was really banged up. That entire team was banged up when you consider George Lynch. He broke his foot and I think tried to come back in the finals and maybe played some token minutes. I think Eric Snow was playing with a broken foot. I'm going to see Eric tonight and reconfirm that. But you might recall, and of course this was the Philadelphia Daily News, when newspapers, at least the paper really mattered. They were on the back cover, which is where the sports began, I think for 40 or 50 straight issues. And one of the issues, I don't know if you remember, Mike, the fife and drum tour that you would see, from 1776,
yeah,
where guys, were marching and they were bruised, battered, and beaten, and somehow they had the same spirit. Well, they put the Sixers' faces in this in that famous picture, and showed them marching with fife and drum, but. They end up winning the Milwaukee series, and there was very little drama in that game 7. And then, of course, they advance to the Lakers, and they win that game 1.
They did. You say very little drama in the game 7, but that series was filled with drama. I mean, it was shot for shot, back and forth. And, again, it was every other night of the week. And that was like it was just everybody could not wait for these games. And then, as you mentioned, they get to the finals against the Lakers, who were heavily favored, and they win that game. And, of course, the iconic step over, and they just, they had enough to get the one and just didn't have anything left there. But, they lose to the Lakers, which many people expected. But that team has stood the test of time. I mean, here they are 25 years later, and people are wearing the logo from that year. And, people look back at that team so fondly. And can you believe they haven't been able to get back to those heights?
Yeah, and it's not for lack of trying. It's, I mean, so first of all, there were those years where they were simply taking on expiring contracts and players who maybe weren't let's put it this way. They could have played either in the NBA or the G League. So much so that I remember going to training camp at the beginning of the process with the Sixers, and I remember looking at the roster, and by that time I was a good 15, 20 years as the broadcaster and 30-some years covering the league, starting as the halftime guy, and there were names I didn't recognize. So, the process years were very lean years, but during that time, obviously, they were collecting draft picks, they were collecting salary cap room, and, that was sort of a dark age, I guess, although there were a lot of people who lauded that. You can go back, on both sides of the issue. But that's neither here nor there. And now, it's all about Embiid. If we could bring it up to 2026, it's really all about him and his health, as it's always been. Paul George to some extent as well. The good news is they have a backcourt for the next 10 years. Tyrese Maxey is just an iridescent kind of player, if that word makes sense in this particular context. And then to be able to take VJ Edgecombe as they have, and the kid is really just so special. He's already hit big shots for them and is not afraid of any moment, at least so far in the regular season. So there are a lot of fingers crossed. Embiid stays healthy, Paul George stays healthy. Do they get a reinforcement or two at the trade deadline? And then, you cross your fingers. Certainly they have the pieces there. They have the coaching. And can they do it? Let's see. Look, it's the quintessential Rocky story. When Rocky won, he does not win, right? Well, that's what the Sixers did. Unfortunately, it's taken 25 years for the sequel, but let's hope it occurs and it happens.
Marc Zumoff's our guest. 27 years as the voice of the Sixers. He spent 36 years on the broadcast team. And we talk about this team that will be at the Xfinity Mobile Arena on Saturday to, be remembered for what they did. And while they did not win a championship, Mark, I would guess you would say that the mark that they left is probably one of the more profound in a city that has been starving for championships. And while the Eagles have a couple recently, for a while, that Sixer run was about the best that this area had.
It's a good point, Mike. And let me tell you that the team itself, think about all of the other stuff around the team. First of all, the way it played, it embodied the city of Philadelphia. We all think that. And Allen Iverson in particular, with the way he played, the underdog kind of guy, the small guy who kept getting knocked down and picking himself up. But you also had the rags to riches owner in Pat Croce, a guy who was, I always say, and I think he coined the phrase, comfortable with the street or the elite. And while the Sixers were getting good, he's climbing water towers. He's climbing the Walt Whitman Bridge. He's putting caps on cabbies. He's, giving you the high energy in the interviews. And 1 minute, the next minute, he's brokering an agreement between Larry Brown and Allen Iverson, two future Hall of Famers. Think about all this stuff. And Mike, I know you'll remember, it seemed like literally every other car on the road had these plastic flags that would clip onto the window frame, and people were flying these flags. So the hysteria around the city, and I said this publicly, and I know people are going to kill me for it, but look, I got some cred, right? I'm a lifelong Philly fan, and I love all the teams, and I'm an Eagles season ticket holder and all the rest. I did not get this same vibe, even when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl, and that was pretty hysterical. I did not get the same vibe as I did from that 2001 team.
You know what? I don't know that there's ever been any run of anything that was like that, because the nature of the every other night and how close so many of the games were. And Mark, as you described those games, the style of those games, how gritty they were at times, and how much they had to fight and claw to get a victory just because they just didn't have a lot of offensive talent. It made it a heavyweight battle every single day they played in that playoff run.
And you know what, Mike? I'm going to come out of left field with this one, but what you had said, and listen, you're agreeing with my statement. But the only other one that may have rivaled that was the Flyers' first Stanley Cup, because everybody was bad leading up to that. I mean, teams, the Sixers were poor, the Phillies were poor. I mean, the Eagles with the likes of like Mike McCormick and Ed Kyatt and all those years, nobody was doing anything. And the Flyers captured the hearts of everyone. And there were people who became hockey fans that had no idea about the sport or how it was played. So that's just my memory as a Philly fan. But other than that, I think the Sixers team, 2001, was the most insane year in our sports history.
Well, 25 years later. Yeah, 25 years later, they'll all meet tomorrow up there before the Pelicans game. Mark is on his way up there. I ran into Randy Ayers the other day, and he was telling me about the big dinner and everything that's happening, and some people were like, I don't know what's going on, and it's all going to be surprises. I'm sure the Sixers will do it right, and it should be a great time. Mark, we appreciate you bringing us back to that day 25 years ago.
Always, bro. You know that.
Take care, man.
Thanks, you too.
Marc Zumoff, everybody, the former voice of the Philadelphia 76ers. There you go, man. He took us down memory lane. And I would say, too, he said the Flyers, when the Flyers, I'm not quite, I was not born when the Flyers won the Stanley Cup in those back-to-back runs. But I would say in high school, the 93 Phillies, every single day, how much fun that was with the Phillies. And even though they lost, much like 22, this Phillies team took us on a run against the Cardinals, the Braves, the Padres, and then the World Series, kind of a clunker against the Astros. But it had a little bit of similarities to the 93 bunch, just an underwhelmed bunch of guys on the roster at the start of the season and then get off to a great start, and the city fell in love with them. It's been 25 years since the Sixers went to the finals. They'll celebrate it this weekend with the 25th anniversary reunion game. And, of course, Marc Zumoff, the voice who described all the action that year. There will be no Larry Brown tomorrow, no Aaron McKee, and Speedy Claxton, who was a part of that team, are unable to attend. I did see assistant coach Randy Ayers last week. He also had told me that Pepe Sanchez was not going to be there either. But think about the teams, the players I'm talking about. I mean, the roster for the Sixers, real quick. Rajah Bell, Rodney Buford, Speedy Claxton, Matt Geiger, Tyrone Hill, Allen Iverson, Jermaine Jones, George Lynch, Todd McCulloch, Aaron McKee, Rashawn McLeod, Dikembe Mutombo, Kevin Ollie, Pepe Sanchez, and Eric Snow. They went to the finals with that crew right there. Could they beat this year's Sixers team? Who's guarding Embiid? Mutombo, I guess, right? Yeah, that would be a fun one. Iverson against Maxey. That would be a battle. Eric Lynch against Eric Snow against VJ Edgecombe. Lynch against, I guess, Paul George. Sal Paolantonio joins me next. Stick around, everybody. That was Sal Paolantonio on ESPN's NFL Live earlier this week. He said the candidates are going to be guys that can get more from Jalen Hurts. Well, the decision has been made, and Sal Paolantonio, ESPN's senior NFL national reporter, who will be with the New England Patriots all week long in San Francisco, in ESPN's coverage of Super Bowl 60. He'll be with the Patriots. Also, the new 30 for 30, which Sal Pal was a creative consultant on. We're going to hear from him about that. It's based on his book, the new 30 for 30 Philly special. We'll get his thoughts on that and more. But we just played that bite of Sal Pal on NFL Live earlier this week about interviewing candidates who can get more from Jalen Hurts. Well, they have picked not only their candidate for the offensive coordinator, they also have a new pass game coordinator, and it was a guy they liked for the job for offensive coordinator, Sal. They hired Sean Mannion, a unknown to many, only 2 years of coaching experience, and Josh Grizzard. They will be the new brain, the brain share, if you will, in the Eagles' offensive coaching room. What do we think of the Philadelphia Eagles' decision to go with a play caller with no experience again?
You know, it's definitely a big question mark. I can't get all on board with Sean Mannion yet. I have to see how he performs on game day. It's not something you can really practice for during practice or training camp or even during preseason games. You can't really duplicate that game day experience when things are on the fly and you got to make a call based on changing and adapting, down and distance, time of game, players coming on and off the field based on injury. There's so much that goes into it, and only experience really can. There's no substitute for experience. It's not a question of talent. It's not a question of smarts. Smart, talented people have failed at this. You have to have the experience. You have to go through it in order to do it. To me, that's the bottom line. Now, I look at Sean Mannion. Obviously, he's played the game. But you have to understand something, Mike, and I think people do who follow this team. I know that you do. The championship window is open on the Philadelphia Eagles, and it will close pretty fast. There's only about 5 to 7 teams where the championship window is open. We can name them right now. L.A. Rams, Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles. Championship window open. They have a championship defense. They have a championship defensive coordinator. They have young, hungry players on defense. They have got Saquon Barkley. This team has a quarterback who already went to 2 Super Bowls, outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 of them, and won the Super Bowl and was a Super Bowl MVP. So for Sean Mannion to come in here, there's a lot of guys with a lot more hardware than he's got. And he has to prove himself to this group. People keep saying to me, and you saw me on NFL Live and you probably saw me on Get Up on Wednesday. And I was flabbergasted by some of the comments that I heard on social media as a result of that conversation on those 2 shows. That, it's not a really attractive job because, Kevin Patullo's house got egged or, Jalen Hurts is set in his ways. That's ridiculous. This team has the best general manager in the NFL. This team has an owner willing to pay whatever it takes to get talent in here. Forks over $100 million contracts over and over and over again.
Yeah.
This team's got Vic Fangio. Nobody else has got Vic Fangio. And this team's got a guy who won a Super Bowl MVP. What are people talking about that this is not an attractive job? It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way either. I tend to agree with you on that. I also agreed with some of the things that you said when you were there with Adam Schefter on NFL Live, which was the fact that they're interviewing candidates that can get more from Jalen Hurts. you got Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard. Let's not forget he's the pass game coordinator now. He is a guy who worked with Mike McDaniel, Liam Cohen. So they're going to put these two guys together and let them cook here, or does Nick Sirianni still get involved with the offense?
Well, he should be involved. He's the head coach. I was obviously lobbying for him to get involved when Kevin Petullo was failing miserably. You want your head coach involved. There's nothing wrong with that. You want Jeff Stoutland involved.
Well, I guess the involvement part that I talk about is the insinuation that's like, hey, here's my playbook. You got to kind of run this, not run.
Well, that's different.
Right.
That's different. Is he going to dictate? That's different than involvement.
Correct, yes.
Of course you want him involved, but we don't want him dictating. But we also don't want Sean Mannion, who is completely inexperienced in play calling, to fail like Kevin Petullo or Brian Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you got to step in. That's the bottom line. And I think Sirianni just waited too long. And I said on your show when they fired Kevin Petullo that it was 6 to 8 weeks too late.
Too late, right. Yo, you absolutely did. And there was a lot of people who agreed with you there. You get Sean Mannion. He's got 2 years of coaching experience. The people are saying, hey, this guy might be the new hot thing. Do you like the fact that with what was out there and what was available at this time, do you like the fact they said, you know what, the heck with a guy who may be safer, let's take the big swing?
Well, I also said on NFL Live and Get Up that I had 2 independent sources confirm to me that they never offered the job to Brian Daboll. Why not? I mean, Brian Daboll's got play calling experience. He was with Jalen Hurts in Alabama. I'd like to know the answer to that question. Why wasn't he offered the job? To me, Daboll was the better choice because of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a guy who's been there, done that. I mean, people say 2 years experience is good for Sean Mannion. Jalen Hurts has been in 2 Super Bowls.
Look, the 2 years for Sean Mannion, the fact that he's been a quarterback coach and that's it, you could certainly wonder whether or not this situation, this town, the environment here will chew him up and spit him out. Not to mention, you're in Green Bay, a historic town, probably not nearly the media scrutiny that you go through here.
Well, he's been under the radar because LaFleur has basically been taking all of the heat there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, he's been hidden. Nobody's really heard of Sean Mannion until the Eagles hired him, really. I mean, he wasn't on any national radar that I saw.
Nothing.
Did he interview for any other offensive coordinator job?
Good question. I don't know that he had another interview. I know that, by the way, Declan Doyle has just been hired as the Ravens' new offensive coordinator. So Baltimore also going with a very young and unknown.
Yeah, and you're going to coach a 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. So, the pickings were slim, but, I would have said Matt Nagy or Brian Daboll over Sean Mannion. Now, I'm not opposed to getting a young, vibrant mind in there who will try to incorporate some of the concepts, passing game concepts, and Grizzard will do that too, that come out of Sean McVay and Kyle and Mike Shanahan, and the one that's being used by Clint Kubiak in Seattle, and LaFleur, and of course, being used in Cincinnati by Zach Taylor. That whole tree of coaches use basically the same concepts, and they put their own imprint on it. But Mannion, it's going to be different. And here's the thing that really drives me up a tree, is they're comparing Mannion to the Andy Reid hiring because Andy Reid was the quarterback's coach coming out of Green Bay. Andy Reid was hired in 1999 because Ray Rhodes was an utter failure. They had the first pick in the draft, and they drafted they had a first-round pick, and they went with Donovan McNabb. So Reid and McNabb came in together. Again, Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl ring. And I keep hearing everywhere, well, Jalen Hurts didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do that. And there is something to that. He's a little bit stubborn, but all great players are. Jalen Hurts is a great player. Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
By the way,
in two
anybody
Super
who
Bowls.
doesn't think that why would anybody think that he wouldn't have some input or stubbornness?
Of course.
He's won the Super Bowl. He's the MVP. He should.
Yeah, if I'm in the room, I won the Super Bowl, and in comes Sean Mannion, I'm going to be like, well, this guy was a backup quarterback, and I won a Super Bowl. That's the first thing, and he has every right to think that, 100%. Could Sean Mannion have played in Alabama and Oklahoma? He played at Oregon State in the Pac-12. So, listen, I think I like the idea of coming out of that coaching tree with those passing concepts. But color me skeptical about how quickly this will get done and whether Jalen Hurts will buy it.
Well, and that's the thing. Sean Mannion walks in. He doesn't have a lot of experience. Does he say to Jalen Hurts, and does he say, hey, man, I know you won the Super Bowl, and I'm a nobody to you, but I've played for Sean McVay. I played for Kevin O'Connell. I coached with Matt LaFleur. I got a lot of great new things I look forward to teaching you. And then you got Grizzard, who steps over the top and says, I also, coached with Mike McDaniel and Liam Cohen, and I think I can teach you a lot too. Like, the question would be, can Jalen Hurts run McVay, LaFleur, O'Connell, McDaniel? Will he flourish in that type of offense?
Right, and that's the thing, right? If he doesn't, then what? What do you do then?
Then what? Right. Because then you get down to a situation where you hired these two guys, and if it's a square peg in a round hole, you end up back to square one again, and that could get some people.
Well, Michael, let's stop right there for a second. You coach young people the game of baseball, and you've been a manager and a coach. So, no disrespect to you, but if you got a guy who can throw 100 miles an hour, and he doesn't like you, who's staying and who's leaving?
Well, at this age, probably I'm staying. He's leaving, right?
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
A lot of guys running around who can throw 100 miles an hour.
No, not at all. And
listen, and there's not a lot of guys that can hit 300 home runs or 500 home runs. And there's not a lot of guys like Jalen Hurts who can pilot a team to a Super Bowl against Steve Spagnuolo and outplay a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame twice.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sal Pal.
In the Super Bowl.
When you don't hit expectations, things start to get a little uncomfortable, right? And the Eagles, I guess, made some uncomfortable decisions the last 2 days here.
Yes, they did. And this is going to be a challenge for everybody to make it work. But the biggest challenge is Sean Mannion calling plays on game day.
Now, would you have felt better?
1A and 1B. That's it.
Would you have felt better if these two jobs were reversed and Grizzard got the offensive coordinator job? He does have play calling experience, not a lot. And Mannion came over and was the pass game coordinator.
Well, they might have said to themselves, well, we got Mannion, but we really need somebody who's got game day experience. I'm calling plays. Mike, I'm always have been a big believer in a bench coach. I don't care who you are. You can't see everything and do everything. And I think it's great in the dugout, and I think it's great on the sideline. Managers who have good bench coaches are better managers.
Agree. Yeah.
9 times out of 10 if they have a good bench coach. I mean, Joe Torre benefited from Don Zimmer. There's no question about that. You got to have somebody you can talk to, bounce ideas off of. They see stuff you don't see because you might have, focused in or tunnel vision. I'm sure that in your career as a manager, you have relied on people who have been helpful to you in figuring things out on a baseball field.
Oh, 100%. Listen, even at the smallest level, I say all the time, we never would have won the World Series that we won had the assistant coach that I brought on that year not put some new ideas in my head, things I probably would not have done. And I think that goes at every level. And we talk about this all the time. Why do you hire so-and-so or a guy that you know or whatever? Sometimes coaching is the camaraderie and the ideas that come from, sitting there after practice and throwing more ideas around.
No question. This is my 34th Super Bowl. 34th. I have led ESPN's coverage at the Super Bowl for 32 straight years. I was 2 at the Inquirer. 32 straight years. But I listen to the producers they have ideas. How do I stay on TV? I listen to their ideas, Mike, and I try to incorporate their ideas into what I do.
I do think, Nick, and see if you agree, Sal, how to take a little look in the mirror and say, listen, my little fun pop gun offense, it won us a Super Bowl. We've had a nice run. It might be time to make a change. And
okay, well, that's good. Nick probably had no choice, right? Patullo failed, and let's be honest about it. The season was wasted because Nick went with Patullo.
Yeah.
This was a championship-level team. And I keep going back to this. The window is open on the Eagles winning another championship, but it can close very quickly.
Something else you said many times, was the most expensive offense in the league, and they got 19 points in a home playoff game and struggled all season long. They just did not get the ROI.
So he had no choice but to change and accept the change. That's not the issue. The issue is, 1, will Jalen accept the coaching? 2, well, I'm going to flip them. I'm going to stay with this. Can Sean Mannion call plays on game day with the help of Grizzard, with the input from Sirianni, with the input from Jalen Hurts? Can this work? That's 1. 2, will Jalen Hurts accept the coaching?
Right.
Will he accept? 3, does he have the ability, like you said, to run this offense? These are all major, major questions, and they shouldn't be. It's unfair to Jalen Hurts. And I was having this conversation with a Hall of Fame player this week. I said, name me another quarterback in the recent history of the NFL who won a Super Bowl, went to 2 Super Bowls, and then had to change what they did for a new offensive coordinator. Aikman never did it. Steve Young didn't do it. Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, Tom Brady certainly didn't do it. He recoiled at the whole Bill O'Brien thing, and they brought Josh McDaniels back.
Mm-hmm.
Name me a quarterback. Patrick Mahomes had Andy Reid in his ear his entire career. It's been incredibly difficult and unfair to Jalen Hurts for him to have to accept change when he's already won a Super Bowl. Now, will he accept it and accept the coaching, and will it work? And is it fair to have to do that to him? At this point, it's going to be very difficult. I just, can you name another quarterback that's had to accept a new coordinator as much as this guy has?
No way. No way. I mean, how crazy? Well, and you got a guy like Peyton Manning who has Tom Moore with him the whole year. The fact that guy never got hired off of his
time.
Right, never got hired off the staff, so Peyton has the same guy his entire career in Indianapolis is crazy. So, no, I can't think of someone who has gone through the washer machine of offensive coordinators like Jalen Hurts here. So,
especially a guy who's won a Super Bowl. Just go through the Rolodex of your memory, Michael. Guys who have been at this level of success where they have said, nope, you're not good enough because we got to find another offensive coordinator. Year after year after year. Do you think Peyton Manning would have accepted this, stood for this? Do you think Brady would have? No way. Mahomes certainly didn't. He wanted Reid there all the time. Go down the list.
And oddly enough, they brought Bieniemy back.
And they brought Bieniemy back. Why did they do that?
Right. They need the continuity, right? You don't want to keep going through a whole nother thing. Well, Sal Paolantonio, there you go. Great insight on the Eagles and their new offensive coordinator and pass game coordinator. They will have a new look on offense, it looks like. When we get closer to OTAs and training camp, we'll start to see what it looks like. Let's get into, you just said, well, this will be year 35 at the Super Bowl?
34th Super Bowl, yeah.
34. I thought you were saying you've already done 34 and that this would be 35. This will be number 34 then. You will be embedded with the Patriots, who are back. It's a rematch of the 2015 game all week long. What are some of the key things you're going to be watching with the Patriots next week?
Well, Michael, I leave on Sunday. I get embedded with them in their hotel in Santa Clara. This is the 11th time that Kraft has been in the Super Bowl, and I've covered all 11 Super Bowls, obviously 3 with the Eagles, and 2 with the Giants, right? So 2004, no, 2 with the Eagles and 2 with the Giants. So I've covered the Patriots 7 of the 11 and the 2 NFC East teams, the Eagles and the Giants. So I really know their operation inside and out. And it's nice that they still trust me, even though they know, my affiliation with Philadelphia and the fact that I was there in Super Bowl 52 and they lost to Nick Foles. And so I appreciate the trust that they have in me in covering the team. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I think he's a great communicator and a great coach. He's sort of Belichick 2.0. I covered Parcells in the 96 Super Bowl, the Belichick in all those Super Bowls, and now Vrabel, who's sort of son of Bill, but he's different from the other 2 guys. Not as gruff, more communicative, and a really good coach. And I really am very impressed with the linebackers coach who calls the defensive plays, Zach Kerr. Remember that name. Terrell Owens, their defensive coordinator, has been dealing with prostate cancer. He is going to Santa Clara, but he won't coach in the game, and God bless him, and we hope for a full recovery for Coach Williams. So I think their defense is something, you look at Milton Williams, he's been unblockable. He's been unblockable. And for him to go back-to-back Super Bowls, I think that's the number one thing you got to look at. They've only given up 26 points in 3 playoff games. Their defense is overlooked and underrated. And then Drake May. Is he okay? Because I've watched that play over and over again where he is driven into the ground on his right shoulder and he winces right away. And he's been limited, and they say he's going to be okay, and he's going to play in the game. But I want to see how good he does this week during practice.
All right, those are some of the things Sal's going to be watching on the Patriots side of things. Of course, we will be in San Francisco Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for 3 shows. Yes, actually, we'll be there. The Sixers are playing there Tuesday night. We're going to go over and watch the Sixers and the Warriors.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
see, I'm so locked in on football. I didn't even know that. I gotta get myself to that game somehow, Michael.
There you go.
Are you going over there?
Yep, we're going over there. Yep, send me a text.
You tell me you got like courtside seats.
Once I tell him Sal Pal's coming with me, I may. Real quick before we go, everyone's excited about the new 30 for 30. They're going to feature the Philly special play, and that's coming out, February 6th, right?
Yeah, a week from today, next Friday, debuts on ESPN, and you can watch it on ESPN Plus and on ESPN Demand. It's a full ESPN 30 for 30 film produced by the great producers at NFL Films. Those guys do an amazing job. We've all seen those films. They are first rate. They've won Peabody Awards and Emmy Awards. I was involved at the very beginning, and Doug Peterson, Nick Foles, Jason Kelsey, and it's really a remarkable process to go through. I was a creative consultant, and I was interviewed and do part of the narration. I'm super excited to see it. I have not seen a little bit of the narration. You saw me in the trailer where they interview me. I haven't seen the final cut.
All right.
I've not seen the final cut. I'm super excited.
Well, and this is based on your book, correct?
Some of it is, a lot of it's based on my book. Yep.
Well, Friday night, we're going to be flying home on the red eye there, so maybe we'll catch it before at the airport or something like that. But look forward to it. Philly special 30 for 30. Sal on the TV all week long with the Patriots getting ready for Super Bowl 60 and maybe courtside for the Sixers and the Warriors.
That'd be funny. And I guess I'll check in with you next Friday, right? But I won't be able to come to Radio Row because I'll be with the Pats down in Santa Clara.
Yeah, man, we will be there. We'll hook up. We'll connect here and get it all set up.
All right, Michael.
All right, appreciate it. Of course, Johnny G and the Burger team. We hope Johnny G texted in earlier today. He was not thrilled with the hire.
Oh, Johnny G was not? Okay, well, we'll have to go to Uncle Bill's with Johnny G and the Griner team at Berger Realty in Ocean City and hash it out when I come back from the Super Bowl.
Yes, we got to make him happy because he was not thrilled.
Oh yeah,
with the with the
there's
hire.
one way to make Johnny G happy: Uncle Bill's pancakes. That's it.
All right, man. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, yeah. Johnny G texted in yesterday. He said, "Hey, Mike and Josh, boo! Don't like it. Sirianni will be gone either way after this year, but hoping for the best." I don't know, man. If this works out, I don't see him being gone. All right, when we come back, Evan Cohen will give his thoughts. He said something this morning. It's going to be our unsportsmanlike moment of the day. Hear what he said coming up next.
it fair to say that Sean Mannion is now the hottest candidate for the 2027 head coaching cycle, and potentially about to get fired? And he has not coached a game yet.
Evan Cohen said that on Unsportsmanlike right here on 97.3 ESPN. It's our Unsportsmanlike moment of the day, and it is brought to you by our friends at Whitehorse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here, Whitehorse RV. Well, we're doing a live Unsportsmanlike moment of the day today. Evan Cohen is here, and he believes the Eagles offensive coordinator is now either the hottest candidate for a head coaching job next season, or the Eagles could be in some big, big trouble. Evan Cohen is live for today's Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Mike, how are you? Is Josh playing Exhibit? What's the difference between me and you? Is that what I just heard there? Because I haven't heard that song in forever. I like that song.
That is our Unsportsmanlike theme music. It plays every day during the Unsportsmanlike moment of the day.
How do I not know that? Because that means you have played it with me before, and I didn't pick up on it then, but now I've picked up, and I've seen it, and I've watched it, and I've listened to it, and we've played it back on our show at times, and somehow I did not pick up on it until right now. Terrible job by me.
Bad job by you. By the way, I do pick the music, so it is my pick. It's not Josh DJing today.
Wow. All right. So you couldn't give Josh credit on that. That's
well,
an interesting one from you.
Well,
wow.
Because
okay.
the fact that you knew it, I was so pleased that somebody caught that. What's the difference? If it's the unsportsmanlike moment, what's the difference? Well, sometimes I agree with you and sometimes I don't.
That's right. That's right. And now what about today? Because I think my take on the Eagles OC position in general, pre-Sean Mannion, but then when he was hired yesterday, I came on the air today and made that take. I think that is so unbelievably reasonable and fair, but let's see. What's the difference between you and me? Will you disagree or agree with me, Mike?
I agree. I agree with exactly what you said, that Sean Mannion is such a wild card, yet he seems to be the guy that everyone's talking about, that you get on him now before he becomes the candidate that you don't get. And I compared it to when the Eagles had a guy like John Gruden. He was the offensive coordinator here in Philly that nobody really knew, but they got to him early, and then he becomes John Gruden that wins the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. And he was a young coach here in Philly that no one really knew was the offensive coordinator here in Philly. But Mannion, at 33 years old, you get him now. He's your guy for a year or two, and then, right, he's the hot candidate. And you're right. If the Eagles go back to what they did a couple of years ago, that was the story here. Are you Kellen Moore, Shane Steichen, or are you Brian Johnson or Kevin Patullo? You either get a job or you get fired. Pick which one you want to be. Mannion's taking the shot.
Here's why, 100%, obviously I agree with you. Great context by you with that. Here's why I would be glass half full if I'm an Eagles fan right now. So just for background, so I am from New York and I live in New York, but I did go to college at the University of Wisconsin. I spent a lot of time there, and I have tons of friends and people that I worked with forever in Wisconsin. And they're all annoyed he's gone from the Packers. And, Mike, you would say, well, why are they annoyed that the quarterback's coach who doesn't call plays is gone? Like, who really cares about that? Here's why they care. They all thought this guy could be good, and they're all kind of itching for LaFleur to change things up. And a lot of them thought, give this guy the chance to call plays. It changes things up a little bit. What's the worst that can happen? You take it back if it's not good, like you just got the extension, and they want to see some things that are a little bit different, and this was the guy that they were calling for, not their offensive coordinator in title, a guy that they have there. So do you want to go just based on that? No, but I'll tell you this. I saw more of them that were annoyed that Mannion was gone than when Jeff Hafley was gone, who's going to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Right, it's funny because you know who else was once the quarterback coach for the Green Bay Packers and turned out to be a pretty good find? Andy Reid.
Oh, but Doug Peterson was a quarterback there, and I want to say he was on the staff. Yeah, Andy Reid, Gruden obviously when he was there, and then went to Philly as well.
But that's the Eagles have always seemingly found the guy that was on nobody else's radar, right? Andy Reid, Doug Peterson. Who else interviewed Doug Peterson when they hired Doug? Nobody. And then of course Nick Sirianni was not on anybody's radar when the Eagles. So they have had this little thing where they find a guy that no one else was really even looking at, and then they grab him, and then it generally has worked out well for them.
Yeah. Now, the other way has happened as well, right? Like, as you said, I'm going to be honest. national guy like myself now, I've been local but national, and I'm pretty good with these staffs. Did I have a great feel for Petula before they hired him? I did not. I'm not going to lie to you. You know I wouldn't do that, Mike. So in theory, for somebody like me, that could be like, oh, that's like the Eagles guy. I know now that was Sirianni's guy forever, but the same context maybe could be looked at as like the Eagles are hiring him when others would not. Because was anybody interested in Petula? I don't remember that.
No.
At that time.
Absolutely
Mannion,
not.
I know.
Nobody
Right.
was interested in
And
Petula,
Mannion,
including the Eagles fans.
Right. And Mannion, I am fully aware of because he was a player in the league not so long ago.
Exactly. And, when Kevin Petula got the job, Evan, the people were basically saying, you've already tried this hiring from within, giving it to your buddy when Brian Johnson got the job, and that didn't work. And many people felt, look, the team went to the Super Bowl. You can't just turn the offense over to a guy with no experience. This time, it almost feels as if, hey, everybody needs a reset. We've done it this way for so long. It's finally time to change, and we're going to get some new ideas in this building. And I think you're going to see
Didn't that happen? But sorry, Mike, I don't mean to interrupt, but you triggered a memory. Didn't that happen 100 years ago with Andy when he hired Juan Castillo? Juan Castillo, is that his name?
Juan was the offensive line coach that they made the defensive coordinator.
Right, but conceptually it was the same thing of, it's one of my guys I trust, I'll put him in a different spot.
Right.
Belichick's done that forever. More of them worked out than not. The one that people realize and think about more so is Matt Patricia, and I know went to Philly right after that.
Yeah.
But you know what? A lot of these coaches seemingly shoot themselves in the foot if an assistant coaching hire doesn't work when it's one of your guys. Right? We never hear about the assistant coaching hire that works if it's one of your guys, only if it doesn't work and it's one of your guys. If Kevin Petula had never really known Sirianni, it wasn't one of his guys, and it didn't work out, I don't think the vitriol would be there, but because it's one of his guys, I think the hatred becomes really, multiplied, if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, and listen, that's what happened here is that basically, and that happened to Doug, Evan, which was he had Press Taylor. The front office basically said, you got to get rid of this guy. And Doug said no. And it was like, well, if you don't get rid of him, you're going to go. And Doug was like, okay. And that's how Doug Peterson essentially got fired.
Yeah. It's weird. It's amazing. The history of the Eagles' assistant coaches is so deep. And normally, Mike, you and I study this stuff. It's why we get along so well, because we love this medium. And, you're not supposed to go too in-depth with so many things in terms of coaching staffs, right? Because it's who the hell driving home from work in Atlantic City, Philadelphia area, South Jersey, whatever it is sitting there saying, yeah, let me break down the assistant special teams coach of the Eagles.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, the Eagles have had so many name assistant coaches that the fans are so into it.
Let me tell you, the Eagles are a 365, 24/7 entity. And you're right. People will break down the backup center to make sure that if the starter is hurt, that guy is the right guy. You're absolutely right about it, but people are looking at Kevin Petula as, wow, he was the reason. Because so many people blame the coaches. It's always the coach's fault. And when you have a guy like Nick Sirianni who doesn't call the plays, it puts way more of a focus on that guy. And then they bring in Grizzard today, who they interviewed for the job, and now they have both of the guys here that they interviewed. So now you've got two guys who are brand new, one who's been a play caller in Josh Grizzard, but he worked with Mike McDaniel, he worked with Liam Cohen, and then you bring Mannion in here who's worked with McVay and O'Connell. I mean, this is a completely new way that their offense might look completely different for the first time in a while.
I may regret saying this.
Well, lay it on us. Lay it on us.
All right, here we go. Conceptually, I like the idea of them saying, we couldn't get Dayball, just as an example. Let's just try to get everyone else. Let's just try to get all of the rest of the guys, fill out a staff that way, and let's just try to have more positive ideas and different versions of the offense and then figure out what it is and all do it together. You don't want to be doing different things when you get there, but if Sirianni, if Mannion, if Grizzard, all these guys are here, all right, guys, go over to Nick's house tonight. Everyone bring their 20 favorite plays from every job they have, and then we have 60 plays, and let's narrow it down to the 40 that we're going to give to Jalen and see which ones Jalen likes, and let's come up with our new version of our playbook. That sounds a little backwards unless it works, and I'm not a big collaboration. Collaboration means just people don't know each other and everyone wants to point figures. But in this case, if you're just collecting guys that have been offensive coordinators or interviewing for offensive coordinator positions or played quarterback in the NFL,
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like it.
Listen, anything's better than what we went through last year. I mean, that was brutal. It was painful to go through that
And you know
season.
what else I would do? You know what else I would do? It's a weird one, but here we go. I may say to Fangio, you available tonight? Yeah, what's going on? We need you to sit in on every offensive meeting and tell us if these plays are going to work.
Well, that was he was when they brought him in as a consultant a couple of years ago, that was what they said, that he was a consultant for the offense, not the defense. So
yeah, to know what you're up against.
To know what you were up against, right. So good job by you. Evan Cohen, our Unsportsmanlike Moment of the Day, as always here. Now, next week, your show is at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
3 a.m. to 7 a.m., live in San Francisco, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
So when everybody here in Atlantic City is listening, keep in mind Evan's going to be at 3 o'clock in the morning, so he might sound groggy and he might sound out of it. Now,
No, I will not. How dare you?
I heard Michelle said she's just going to stay up all night long and do it that way.
Oh, hold on. I won't sound groggy. She will definitively sound. She's going to be a disaster. We've already been talking about it on the show. She's interesting. When she gets tired, she basically completely passes out. We've been at dinner where I've seen her fall in food
geez.
because she gets so tired. And it's a really interesting thing. It's like a snap your fingers immediate kind of thing. So we got to make sure she's okay, right? I am going to be fine. And now here's the thing. Because she's cooler than me, more popular than me, and everyone wants to be around her, she has all these things that all these big brands and events are asking her to do. Me, I'll be going home and working on the trade machine every night. So I'll be good to go up until next Thursday.
Right, because the trade deadline always falls in. Well, it's just funny because I keep getting the emails trying to book Evan Cohen, and I said, well, it's too early. I'm not going to be there that early. You're going to be there and out.
I'm emailing you to book me?
Yes, I have
That's
people
great.
emailing me if I would like to have Evan Cohen on, and I said,
well, I am going on, I think, with you next week. Aren't we doing something?
I did.
Point, I think?
Well, he told me to make sure I grabbed a time, and then if I saw you and that we wanted to work on our own time, that was up to you and me.
It.
But I said to him, those times are a little early. I don't know that I will be there by then because you were only available
Wait a second. I just looked. I'm in my car. I just parked to talk to you, but I just looked at my calendar. I have us at 11:30 Eastern next Thursday, 8:30 Pacific. You're telling me
8:30 Pacific. My show goes
That's
on at
too
2.
early?
Well, listen, my show doesn't start till 11 a.m. Pacific, which means I would be there at 3 hours before my show starts, just sitting there talking to you.
Wait a second. After all of the time we have spent talking, and the only time we have been together in person, you totally blew me off. You can't come in 2.5 hours early for come in. We'll talk, and then you go back to sleep for a little bit.
Go back to sleep? What are they going to have?
How far is your hotel?
That's a good question. I think it's about 10-minute walk. But once I'm up, I'm up. I'm not coming down to go back to sleep. Listen, I told him that if I had to, I would get there early that particular day. But if I
have to, well, you don't have to.
Well, I said if I saw you, and I figured I'd have this conversation with you tonight, and if you said, we'll push it back a little later, I'll be there, don't worry about it, then I can maybe get there at 9:30 instead of 8:30.
Wait a second. The fans of Mike Gill have been so good to me, and 97.3 Atlantic City at ESPN Radio, is you guys have been so good to me. But let's now ask them. Can you put something up, whether it's on the stream or a poll? Is 8:30 in the morning too early? Do you realize that's what you're saying?
What day is this?
Every day of my life, Monday through Friday, I wake up at 3:40 a.m.
Ooh.
On the weekends, I wake up at 5 a.m. And you're telling me that 8:30 in the morning with a 10-minute walk, which means
That's not the way no. I'm saying I'll be up by then. I will be awake. Now, the time change, I don't really know how, because I haven't been on West Coast time very much. I don't know how the time change is going to be interfering
What do
with
you mean?
this.
You just went to Europe or whatever you did last summer. You were all over the world.
Yeah, it's actually I'm going to Egypt when I get home. By the way, so I'll be out for a while. I'm going to the pyramids on February 12th.
So you're worried about the time change in San Francisco to get up to talk to me at 8:30 in the morning, and you're bouncing around.
But keep in mind that's going to be the first day that I'm out there. So Thursday morning might be a little weird.
God.
You know what I'm saying? I'll be up.
My
My question
God,
is,
what a
will I
baby.
be up and ready? Because, it's a whole thing to get the whole team, get Josh on the other side to record it, all that stuff. See, I'm blaming Josh, just like the music's not his pick.
Josh is taking a lot of straight. I'm trying. Josh also gave me a very weird comparison when I talked to him off the air about getting hit by a train, which I don't know why I'd want to be hit by a train.
No.
But what a line. Josh has had an interesting day, let's be honest.
We all have. All right, well, I will see you out there. Maybe not. I don't know. You might be getting out of there a little early.
Maybe I'll blow you off. You know what? Maybe I'll make you go there 8:30 in the morning. Oh, hey, Mike, not available. Sorry, a little too late for me.
I'll be
for you, late for me.
By the way, I'm at table 80. I'm right across from you. You'll be able to see us.
So I see you at the urinal, which is where I saw you last year running away from me.
I looked at the map and I said, "There's a straight beeline right for the bathroom, perfect for where we need to be." Evan Cohen.
Can I ask you one quick thing?
Go ahead.
Give me a take on the Sixers. Do you think they make a trade by next week?
I'm sure they'll do something, but nothing. They're not getting Giannis. Put it that way.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. Do they want to trade Paul George, you think?
Good question. I think the fans would. I don't think the team is all that excited about that. That's one of those deals that you're trading bad salary for bad salary. But I think the fans are
not necessarily. You could trade bad salary if you have ammo, like a pick or two, to give to that incoming team where you get expiring salary. Question is, how good do they think they are this year? And him as their fourth best player, you forget the money for a year. Could you make a run to the finals and you deal with this contract later?
Yeah, well, when I say bad salary for bad salary, you're generally taking somebody else's big salary, so you're not helping but you're also giving picks to take George.
That's right.
Which they don't want to do. I think they're pretty.
Yeah, so then he stays.
I think they're pretty set on Edgecombe and Maxey and turning it over to them. And then they have that Clipper pick coming up here. And look, you got the 2 years left of Embiid. I think everybody's pretty stunned by what you've got out of Embiid here this year.
You know what trade I was thinking about? And I know you got to run. I like this a lot for both teams. Now, it's going to hurt you this year, potentially. What if you do Paul George for Jimmy Butler? You stash Butler if you're the Sixers this year. He's not going to play, obviously. 1 year less on his deal than Paul George. And you get him next year when you're probably ready to make the big run to the finals, and you know he and Embiid love each other. It brings that. What do you think about that? It's a weird one, right?
It is,
the
but
Warriors
after
get an immediate player.
After what Embiid said last night, I can't imagine them doing that. I mean, Embiid basically called the front office out. He said, I don't want to see any trades to duck the tax.
Guess what? Joel, not your team anymore.
Yeah, you got that, but he has played pretty well. You got to admit that. Now, I don't know if anybody buys into him, but the guy's scoring 30 a night over the last 18, which if I told you in the year 2026, after what you saw last year, he's going to score 30 a game, would you believe me?
No, well, I believe you. I just wouldn't believe you on the number of games, right? That's the issue. But if I said to every Sixers fan right now, there's an expansion draft, and only two players on the team could be protected. He's not being protected. They're taking the back.
Yeah, they're taking the two
Edgecombe and
kids.
Maxey. They're taking the two backcourt guys.
Oh, look
and he's probably three, but I mean, I think McCain can be something. And boy, he puts a smile on your face the way he plays and the way he loves basketball and the way he loves just life. There's a joy to that young man.
I'm a big McCain guy.
So let's do this. If I told you right now, next 2 years, because if we do it to 5 years, obviously you're going to take all the kids. Next 2 years, you can only have three players on the Sixers. Who are you taking?
Maxey, Edgecombe. That's a tough one. I mean, I like McCain a lot, but Nurse just doesn't like him, I think. That's the problem there. I'd probably stick
And he
with.
plays the same position as Maxie and Edgecombe, so that probably throws it off a little bit.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm getting the I got to go signed by Josh. He's always butting in here.
Fourth time Josh has been blamed in this interview. All right, see you.
All right, man. I'll see you. Evan Cohen, everybody, on Sportsmanlike Monday morning will be live from Radio Row. They'll be at 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll hear those guys out there. And then we'll try to catch up with Evan sometime next week on the Sports Bash. We are live Monday from the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And you want to listen on Monday because we're going to hope to try to connect with some guests from Radio Row because Nicky Nuggets will be at Radio Row with Grayson and Billy Schwein. They're going to be out in San Francisco Monday. So possibly they'll have some people call into our show on Monday. Then Tuesday, we're going to be en route to San Francisco. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll be live for 3 shows in San Francisco. Thanks to Evan Cohen, Marc Zumoff, Sal Paolantonio, Adam Caplan, John McMullen. What a great show today. I had a blast. Mike McGarry as well. This has been the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great weekend.